Chapter 1204. It's probably too late to regret it. I heard that he rode a bicycle to school. Riding a bicycle to school. Hee, it's really classy. The few of them discussed as they ordered dishes at the window. Although their voices were not loud, the mockery hidden in them could be understood by those who understood. After the three of them finished ordering, they came back first. Baijuan and the others were still standing at the stir-fry window, as if they were choosing something else. It seems like it's a little crowded. Can you let this cat go under the table? After they came back, one of the three girls spoke. She did not have any ill intentions, but the longest table in the school cafeteria could seat 8 people. 1.5 of it was already used to store school bags. With the dishes laid out so long, there would definitely be people who would not be able to get them. Gu-ro glanced over. The white cat standing beside the table really took up a lot of space, so she said to Aju, if you don't eat the stir-fry, can you hug your white cat and sit to the side a little? Although she said to the side, she was actually being polite. Gu-ro clearly wanted Aju to go to the corner to eat. Aju raised her head when she heard this. She looked at Baijuan, who was waiting for something over there. Then, she called out to the white cat, "Little White." The white cat stood up and jumped onto her head. Aju directly picked up the lunchbox on the dining table and walked to another table. She actually understood that some people would be against animals. After all, cats had a lot of bacteria on them. But Little White was different to her. Little White was the guardian that her mother gave her. From the moment she lived in the temple, Little White had always been by her side. Even her master said that Little White was extraordinary. A human and a cat had always eaten the same things since they were young. Aju could not simply treat Little White as a pet. Every time before eating, she would put a small bowl for Little White, and today was no exception. The people beside her felt that it was strange. A girl tugged at Gu-ro's sleeve. Look, that cat is actually sitting on a chair. Is it so human? Gu-ro smiled gently and already had a point. The cat is gone, so you have a chance to get close to Shaolin. When we eat later, I'll give you a seat so that you can sit away from Shaolin. All right. The girl blushed and lowered her voice. But why are these people even bringing Baijuan's sister to eat? How inconvenient is that? Gu-ro immediately raised her finger and tapped it on her lips. Then, she turned around and looked at Aju. Don't say such things in front of Baijuan. He will be unhappy. Aju is still so young. She's still a child. They're both in number 1 high school. He dotes on his sister, so it's normal for him to bring her along. Don't say any more. Even so, Gu-ro knew very well that Aju should have heard everything they were talking about. Aju had indeed heard it. Even though the other party had deliberately lowered their voices, she was sitting behind these people. It was impossible for her not to hear it. However, she didn't seem to have any reaction. She just lowered her eyes and opened the big bag. Such a scene was actually very eye-catching. Baijuan and the others couldn't see it from their position. The rest of the students eating on the second floor could almost feel the subtle squeeze. It wasn't very obvious. Perhaps only girls could sense it. Aju seemed to be isolated when it came to eating. On this side, they were chatting and laughing as they waited. Meanwhile, Aju and the white cat sat together at the place with the weakest light. Whether it was intentional or not, only those who had been ostracized would know that feeling. Clearly, everyone was very polite, but when it came to discussing topics and eating, they didn't bring you along. An old artist once said, I really don't like the kind of person who doesn't know what happened and asks others to be more magnanimous. Everyone had times when their hearts were made of glass, but no one could empathize with them. Just like the current Aju. This was the first time she knew this feeling. It really didn't feel good. She looked at her lunchbox. In the past, it was the little brother who prepared a lot of things for her. When they ate, everyone was together. Now, she was the only one. And it was obvious that because she was a child, she had already hindered these people. In the past, the little tyrant had said that when two people were in a relationship, the thing they hated the most was to be disturbed by others. The little brother was worried about her and took her with him at all times. But she would still be treated as a burden. Even if Aju was unwilling to admit it, had she really become a burden to the little brother now? It was clearly her favorite rice, but when she put it in her mouth, it lost its previous fragrance. Aju lowered her head and ate the rice in the lunchbox without saying a word. Her bangs covered her big eyes. However, at this moment, a pleasant and magnetic voice sounded from her left. "Student, is there anyone across from you?" Aju raised her eyes. Before she could speak, her big eyes shone with an unprecedented light almost instantly. That person looked at her with a smile. His deep black eyes seemed to overflow with warm water. Even the curve of his mouth was like a jumping wave, shining down through the sunlight. It was both familiar and nostalgic. "That's the new transfer student. Don't say, he's really quite handsome. Why did he come to the cafeteria on the second floor to eat? Did he go to the wrong place? The stir-fry here and the big pot of rice are not the same price." More and more voices came from all directions. However, Aju did not seem to hear anything. She widened her beautiful eyes and stood up abruptly. The first thing she wanted to do was to hug someone. The youth put his finger between his lips. His eyes darkened slightly, indicating for her not to speak. He also stopped Aju from the side. No one saw this action. Their thoughts were still stuck on why this transfer student would come to the cafeteria on the second floor. Only Aju nodded obediently. She had a cute little tiger face and her big eyes kept looking at the young man. She didn't even eat. She just looked at him seriously, afraid that the young man in front of her would disappear in the blink of an eye. Was she dreaming? It was her second brother. Although he was different from before, he was an adult now. But, it was really her second brother. Her second brother had become even more handsome and dashing. Aju tilted her furry head, looking like she was asking to be patted. The youth could not help but smile. There was an unconcealable doting look on his face. He reached out his hand with a faint smile and was about to place his hand on her head. Just as he was about to touch her hand, someone grabbed his wrist from behind. It was Bai Juan. Chapter 1205. The two equally outstanding youths with outstanding temperaments looked at each other. Almost everyone could feel the sparks burning in their eyes. Behind Bai Juan were Xiao Lin and Li Hailu. Almost in an instant, everyone in the cafeteria looked in their direction. The surroundings were extremely quiet. Gu Rou also paused. Her smile froze on her lips. "What's going on?" "I don't know." The two girls sitting next to her were also a little puzzled. Li Hailu directly walked over and said to Enchanting, "That's Bai Juan's sister. No matter what your intentions are for getting close to her, stay away from her in the future. If you have any problems that you want to solve with us, let's meet on the field behind the school. Let's, one-on-one." Enchanting tilted her head and looked at the few people standing behind them. Her lips curled into a smile. "Is this one-on-one?" Bai Juan did not say anything. He let go of his hand with an indifferent expression. Then, he turned around and said to Xiao Lin, "You guys go eat first." At this time, Gu Rou and the others also walked over. "What's going on? Is this man being rude? Isn't this the transfer student who rode a bicycle here? He still has the money to eat on the second floor. I say, student, you should go downstairs." That's where you should stay. If you want to find a sense of presence in front of Baijuan and the others, you shouldn't do it like this. The girls were talking, and the meaning in their words was obvious. Aju had always been obedient. Second brother told her not to speak, so she obediently stayed there. However, when she saw these people crowding around her, one sentence after another, every sentence was directed at her second brother. The child really could not take it anymore. With a bang, she pulled up the chair beside her and threw it at the person who spoke with a fierce face. Of course, the child knew her limits and would not hurt anyone. However, the thrill of brushing past the side of her face still made the few girls, including Gu Rou, turn pale on the spot. Aju, what's wrong with you? What if you throw a chair over and hit us? Aju hugged the white cat with one hand and grabbed Hellion Chinchin's hand with the other. Her eyes were as cold as ice. It's you guys. Hellion Chinchin smiled and supported her forehead with her hand. She didn't say anything. She just let her younger sister pull her along. Her eyes were still filled with love. We are not welcome upstairs. Let's go downstairs to eat. After saying that, Aju did not even want the lunchbox. She was about to drag Hellion Chinchin downstairs. Little Gangsterly really had an expression of fuck on his face. Aju, you didn't pull the wrong person, right? This person is your little brother's enemy. He deserves a beating, you. Get out of the way. Aju raised her eyes. The hostility in her eyes really shocked Li Hailu. Gu Rou quickly tried to persuade her. Aju, don't be childish at this time. Also, Hailu, don't be angry. Aju doesn't have any intention of siding with outsiders. Everyone, calm down. Hearing this, Hellion Chinchin smiled. She withdrew her hand from her younger sister's grasp. We don't need to go down to eat. Our seats are already here. How can we leave? Aju raised her head and looked at her second brother. If her second brother said she would not leave, she would not leave. She sat back down with her legs crossed. She held the cat in her hand and looked at her second brother. Hellion Chinchin was a person who did not put anyone in her eyes other than her family. He sat down with a faint smile and reached out to touch Aju's lunchbox. It's cold. What do you want to eat? I'll go buy it. As he said that, he raised his eyes and glanced at Baijuan. After all, you were the one who helped me out. Aju did not understand why her second brother wanted to pretend that they had just met. However, her master had also warned her that before she was 12 years old, it was best not to tell anyone who was in her family. Could it be that her second brother was also doing this because of this? Aju did not understand. However, the joy of seeing Hellion Chinchin was greater than anything else. Aju had never eaten with her real family. Now that she heard that Hellion Chinchin was going to buy food for her, of course she was very happy. She immediately stood up with the little white cat in her arms. I'll go buy it with you. All right. Hellion Chinchin smiled faintly and looked in Baijuan's direction again. Baijuan's hands were tightly clenched. The box of hot milk in his hand was also somewhat twisted by his tight grip. His gaze was heavy as he watched this scene. Countless emotions churned in his eyes, like the night that had darkened. Gu Rou looked sideways and deliberately took a step forward. Aju, be good. Come back quickly. This is a matter between adults. Don't make things difficult for your little brother. Aju did not seem to have looked at Baijuan since just now. Now that she heard Gu Rou's words, she raised her eyes and looked at Baijuan with her big eyes. Little brother, since there are so many of you, just sit together. I'll carry little white. There won't be a seat even if I sit over there. It will only make you feel crowded. Aju, why don't you understand? This is not a matter of whether it's crowded or not. Gu-ro let out a long sigh. You're really still young. There are some things that you still don't understand. Come over to sister's side first, okay? As Gu-ro said this, the girl standing beside her was really a little annoyed. How can this child not even distinguish between friend and foe? Is there something wrong with her head? She had not finished the word problem yet. She saw a figure flash past her eyes. It was Hellion Chinchin. She was holding her neck just like that. Even her eyes were cold. What are you doing? Gu-ro was the first person to shout. The students in the cafeteria also stood up. Master Li immediately wanted to hit her with a plate. There was a loud bang. The plate shattered on Aju's arm. This time, it was blocked by Aju. Li Hailu was stunned. His face turned pale. Ah, Aju, I'm fine. Aju was really fine. This little bit of impact was nothing to her. With a small face, she waved her hand. Bai Juan's heart ached terribly. Without waiting for anyone to react, he pulled Aju over. His handsome face turned sideways, and his eyes seemed to be brewing a huge storm. Shaolin, call Uncle Li and ask him to come over immediately. Little brother, I'm fine. Aju broke free and looked at Bai Juan. I don't know what this brother did to make you guys dislike him so much. But I can't bear to watch your girlfriends mock and ridicule this brother of yours. From the moment this brother came in until now, he only wanted to sit next to me and have a meal with me. He didn't do anything overboard. The cafeteria is a public place. Everyone has the right to sit here and eat. Not everyone can mock others just because they have money. Little brother, let's just leave it at that. You guys eat yours, and we'll eat ours. Don't make me beat up the people on your side. Hearing this, Bai Juan's eyes suddenly shook. Even his throat seemed to be burned by Aju's words. Chapter 1206. Li Hailu was so shocked that he couldn't say a word. He didn't even believe that those words came out of the mouth of the adorable little Aju. Although there was a problem on their side. Those girls' words were indeed a little unpleasant. But what did little Aju mean? Beat up the people on their side. The two words here included him, Shaolin, and Master Bai. Aju, I don't like to hear you say that. Gu-ro came over and said truthfully, even if you are young, you should at least understand a little. Bai Juan, Hailu, and us are all like this because of you. The Bai family has raised you for so many years and has always been good to you. They have never been willing to let you suffer a little. Now that you are beating us up for an outsider, isn't it a little too much? Moreover, for example, if you were not Bai Juan's sister, would he have anxiously grabbed someone's hand when he saw a boy talking to you just now? There's no need. Aju interrupted her. She held the white cat in her hand, and the light in her eyes was very faint. There's no need for little brother to do this in the future because I'm not his sister. Little brother just needs to focus on his relationship. I'll handle my own matters. Li Hailu was struck by lightning again. What was going on? It felt like they were going to split up. Little Aju actually did not want Bai Juan to care about her. She even said that she was not his sister. Li Hailu faintly felt a little angry. What was going on with little Aju today? Aju, you. That's enough. Bai Juan's low voice was heard. Li Hailu could not see his expression clearly, but he knew that Bai Juan was not feeling well. What do you mean by enough? What she said, I said enough. Bai Juan suddenly raised his eyes and glanced at Li Hailu. The desolation that flashed across his eyes made Li Hailu kick the stool beside him unwillingly. Aju and the others did not stay in the cafeteria on the second floor. After she said that sentence, a Jew dragged Enchanting and left. Bai Juan looked at the two figures walking further and further away. His fingers were clenched so tightly that even his knuckles turned white. He turned his head and stared at the three girls behind him. Then, he strode out of the cafeteria. His actions were really like the wind. What the hell? It's not our fault. Why are you getting angry at us? Someone muttered. Shaolin walked over, pushed up his glasses, and said, in the future, please don't come to school to look for us if you don't have an appointment. If you do, don't laugh at us for being poor. That kind of topic is very low to begin with. Also, you're sitting at a Jew's seat. Why did a Jew go to another table? Perhaps Bai Juan was currently angry and did not have the time to think about this matter in detail. However, when he thought about it, it was not as simple as just being glared at. When the three girls heard this, they all felt a little guilty. However, this wasn't what they wanted. They just felt that it was inconvenient to have a child around. Coincidentally, there was a space over there, so what was wrong with letting her go over? They did not know that the transfer student would suddenly appear and greet a Jew. They were innocent too. Shaolin did not have the time to care about what these people were thinking. What worried him the most was Bai Juan. This was because Bai Juan was really too abnormal. After coming out of the cafeteria, he did not say a word, nor did he show any emotions. He just sat on the bench in the shade. When the light shone on the side of his face, it was actually a blur for a moment. She finally feels tired of being controlled by me. As if sensing Shaolin's approach, Bai Juan said in a deep voice, she has always been like this since she was young. She can't tolerate any sand in her eyes. Our actions just now must have been very disgusting in her eyes. Shaolin thought for a moment and said, you didn't participate in those topics, nor were those girls. A Jew's reaction this time was a little intense. Master Li did not know what to say at the side. He could only nod wildly. Even if that transfer student is a little handsome, he's still a stranger, right? Yes, those girls' words are not pleasant to hear. Even if a Jew is not used to it, why would she still challenge us for a stranger? Bai Juan did not say anything. His pitch-black eyes were like a winter night, cold everywhere. Shaolin frowned. Hai Lu, don't say any more. In the end, it's still the wrong thing to do today. According to a Jew's personality, she will definitely not like it. If those girls can cut off contact, then cut them off. None of them said anything. Who knew that they would think of coming to our cafeteria to eat? When Master Li talked about this matter, he also felt that it was troublesome. Bai Juan did not want to continue this topic because no matter what, the scene of a Jew protecting Enchanting would always appear in his mind. He knew that a Jew was different from them. Just as his master had said, she was born with Buddha's fate. The more she was like this, the more she could not bear to see the chaos in the world. However, the person who was protected by her in the past was clearly him. But now, everything had changed. She even said that she did not need him. Bai Juan still remembered that when he was in Zhangbei, he had said that when she grew up, she would probably not need him anymore. He did not expect that these things would come so quickly. Time passed bit by bit. However, a Jew was not even in the mood to eat. She just lowered her head, drooped her ears, and looked at the little white cat in her arms. Enchanting sat beside her. Her clear youthful eyes fell on her fair arm. She picked up a bottle of Yunnan white medicine and sprayed it on it. Her eyes were cold. This matter would not be over just like that. It was said that the onlooker had a clearer view. In addition, Enchanting was sharp. She locked onto the crux of the problem faster than anyone else. That Guru, when the time was right, he would definitely let her know what regret was. However, Baizhuan's reaction was very interesting. It did not seem like he only treated Iju as a younger sister. If that was the case, he would have to observe more carefully. After the incident just now, Helian Qingshan had roughly understood everything. Perhaps Baizhuan's attention was all on him, so he did not hear Gu Rou's words. The Bai family has raised you for so many years and has always been good to you. They have never been willing to let you suffer a little. Now that you have beaten us up for an outsider, it's a little too much, but he heard it. They had always thought that the Bai family was upright and had a red military spirit. They would definitely not treat Iju badly. In fact, it was indeed so. The Bai family was very good to Iju. There was no difference between being good and being biological. On this point, both he and his brother were very grateful to the Bai family. However, they ignored one thing. The discussions around the Bai family would constantly remind Iju that she was not their biological child. She was always an outsider. Chapter 1207. No matter how close they were still outsiders. So this was the feeling of living under someone else's roof. For so many years. Even in the letter, Iju had never told them about it. Therefore, they had always thought that Iju was really living a carefree life. He had grown up with his mother. His brother had grown up with his father. Although his father didn't really care about his children, he was still a man of great importance. At the very least, he would have a family member to accompany him. Only Iju was sent to the temple from the moment she was born. Helian Qingshan still remembered how much the whole family looked forward to the birth of her little sister. Her mother had also said that the only person she felt sorry for among the 3 children was her little sister. She was destined not to be with her father and the others due to her innate Buddhist affinity. Perhaps only the child herself would know the coldness of the world. In the distance, the campus radio station was still playing a song. The lyrics were like this: when you are depressed, you will always feel the weight of loneliness. How you yearn for someone who understands to give you some warmth and lend me a shoulder. Helian Qingshan lowered her eyes and looked at her little sister who was in his arms with a pair of big eyes. She reached out and hugged her. Sorry, little sister, second brother came late, a gentle breeze blew, and snowflakes fell. On the empty field, 2 figures hugging could be seen from afar. The side of the youth's face was always so good-looking. Helian Qingshan was always more meticulous than Bailey Shangxie. Her doting towards Iju could be seen from her every move. Time passed a little slowly. Especially in the classroom, Baizhuan sat in his seat, but Helian Qingshan's seat next to him was empty. The more Li Hailu thought about this matter, the more sullen he felt. However, looking at Baizhuan's expression, he did not dare to say much. He could only comfort him. Iju must be too young. She doesn't understand what happened for a while. When she thinks it through, she will definitely feel that what she did was wrong. Maybe after she goes home tonight, the 2 of you will make up. Iju has always been sensible, but her reaction is a little slow. Don't mind it. It's not a big deal, right? Hailu is right. This matter is fundamentally a misunderstanding. Shaolin also felt that Iju was not sincere. Perhaps she said those words because of the girl's attitudes at that time. Little gangster Li's eyes lit up as he continued, look, even Lin Zi has said so. Who is the enemy and who is the enemy? Iju just hasn't reacted yet. Let the child digest it. She will definitely understand why we did that at that time. Moreover, some words were unintentional. Girls are just like that. Baizhuan lowered his eyes and did not say anything. Shaolin patted him on the shoulder. Don't think too much. Iju has to go home eventually. When you pick her up in the afternoon, just tell her everything. But could they really say it out loud? When we are young, we tend to overlook the most important issues. You can't always think that a person won't get hurt just because she's pure and straightforward. Aju was indeed slow, but that did not mean that she did not understand anything. The more ignorant one was, the easier it was to feel uneasy. This was probably the difference between a 12-year-old and a 17-year-old. The latter had already learned how to maintain interpersonal relationships around them, while the former only had simple likes and dislikes. The class bell was about to ring in 10 minutes. At this time, Aju, who was about to return to the classroom, received a call. The person who called was Guro. Her voice was still very pleasant. "Hello, is this Aju?" Aju had a small face and frowned. "No, I'm hanging up." Guro was speechless. To be honest, Guro was stunned for a moment after she was hung up on. Because she had never thought that Aju would hang up on her the moment she came up. Guro had prepared a lot of words, but they were all choked in the middle of her throat. She couldn't help but make a second call. Aju didn't pick up. Enchanting raised his eyebrows at the side. Guro's eyes gradually darkened as she made the call. Originally, she thought that the other party was just a junior high school student who didn't know anything. She didn't expect that in some aspects, she actually underestimated the other party. Her phone kept ringing. Aju didn't pick it up, but Enchanting smiled and tapped on it for her. Guro was about to speak. Enchanting swiped to the left and hung up. Guro was speechless. What the hell was going on? Aju also looked to the side. There was still a white cat on her head. She didn't understand why her second brother would do such a thing. Enchanting's lips curled up. "Little sister, remember, driving a person crazy is not to not pick up her call, but to not give the other party a chance to speak after picking up. Of course, after playing 3 times, we can still listen to what she wants to say." Aju nodded cutely. She was really using her second brother's words. Therefore, when Guro called for the 3rd time, she quickly swiped it open. She only heard the other party say the word "me" before hanging up again. Guro. Ha. Guro was really a little embarrassed. One had to know that she was a real business child. Compared to the girls who appeared by Baijuan's side before, not only did she have methods, but she was also born with self-cultivation. She liked Baijuan. Other than being desperate in her pursuit, a large part of the reason was that she felt that a little girl like Aju was not worthy of Baijuan at all. However, Guro really did not expect that the other party would continuously hang up on her. Once or twice, she could treat it as if she had pressed the wrong button. This time, it was a total of 3 times. It was obvious that she had done it on purpose. Guro gripped the white iPhone in her hand tightly, and the expression on her face became ferocious. "Guro, what's wrong with you?" Beside her stood the girl who had followed her to number 1 high school. Guro only came back to her senses when she heard her friend's words. She adjusted her facial expression and smiled. "Nothing. It's just that Baijuan's sister doesn't really want to pick up my call. That insensible junior high school student. Why do you care about her?" One of the girls was very angry. Guro smiled and said, "Don't be like this. No matter what, she is Baijuan's sister. Master Li and Shaolin also have to take care of her. I'll give her another explanation." This was Guro's brilliance. She had never been bad about Aju. Every time, she always expressed that Aju was still young and insensible. Over time, this kind of thinking would subtly influence everyone's thinking. This was a common method used by businessmen. Guro had been by old Master Gu's side all year round, so this kind of method had become her most normal life. In this way, it really seemed that Aju was insensible. Guro was already prepared to be hung up on again. But this time, the other party actually picked up. Chapter 1208. Hello. After hearing the voice, Gu-ro was stunned for a moment before she smiled and said, Aju, it's me, your sister Gu-ro. Yes, I know it's you. In other words, I know it's you, so I hung up the phone many times. Gu-ro felt that the breath in her chest was even more suffocating. She took a deep breath and said, Aju, I know you're still angry with me because of what happened today, but there's one thing that you really have to think about seriously. Aju, there's no one else around us now. Ask yourself, how does the Bai family treat you? How does Bai Jun treat you? Everyone grows up day by day. Today, you publicly embarrassed your little brother for such a random person who appeared out of nowhere. Have you ever thought about how he would face his good friends and us? I'm not calling to blame you. I just want to tell you that your little brother is not feeling well either. I know that you have a bad temper. After all, you're still young. It's normal that you can't control yourself sometimes. But under such circumstances, you threw a chair at us without saying anything. Aju, to put it bluntly, it's fine for you to do this to us, but the Bai family has raised you for so many years. Bai Jun thinks about you for everything. At the very least, you have to know how to be grateful. Are you done? Aju's eyes were clear. She lowered her head slightly, revealing her furry little head. It's not up to an outsider like you to discuss the matter between me and the Bai family. Gu-ro exclaimed aggrievedly, Aju, I don't mean anything else. I just hope that you can reconcile with your brother as soon as possible. Otherwise, you won't be comfortable living in the Bai family, right? It's not good to be at odds with Bai Jun like this. After all, other than the Bai family, you can only return to the mountains. Hellion Chinchin heard all of this. Aju was not 12 years old, so he could not take her away. 12 years was the natal year. Only when the zodiac was counted could one be considered to have reached the Mahayana realm. At that time, Aju would be able to ensure that she would not be eroded by turbidity. No one could replace the righteousness of Bai Jun's military soul. At this moment, no matter how much he wanted to take his sister away, he could not be impulsive. Gu-ro. This person really made him want to kill someone. Since she insisted on coming up. Then he shouldn't blame him for interfering in this matter. When Aju was 12 years old, the first thing he wanted to do was to uproot the entire Gu family. However, if Gu-ro had not mentioned it, he would not have thought of this problem. Did these people think that their Aju had no place to go? It wouldn't be a problem to bring them out for half a day. There were some things that Bai Jun could not notice. Then he would give the other party a warning. The Bai family was not Aju's only place. His little sister would also be liked by other people. Hellion Chinchin had always been a black-bellied character, so she directly hung up the phone for Aju. Then, he chuckled and handed his phone to Aju. Second brother, I have a phone. Aju doesn't understand why her second brother gave her another phone. Hellion Chinchin rubbed Aju's head. This phone is not for you. I want you to use my phone to call Bai Jun and tell him that you have to go to the house of the person you like to do your homework after school today. You won't be home until later. Someone you like. Aju's eyes widened. Who? Hellion Chinchin pointed at himself and curled his lips into a smile. Me. Aju was speechless. What? Don't you like second brother? Hellion Chinchin's smile became even wider. It's still not convenient for you to tell him. Then give the phone to second brother after you dial it. Aju muttered, it doesn't seem right to say that you like someone. What's wrong? Hellion Chinchin placed one hand on her sister's shoulder. My little sister is at the age where she should like someone, right? Aju looked at Hellion Chinchin seriously. Woolly Buddha said that you can't break the precept of lust. Any woman is a tigress. Hellion Chinchin was speechless. He finally knew why there was that email. It was basically a poison test by the temple. A good child even became enlightened later than others. If you like men, it's not considered breaking the precept of lust. Enchanting pulled her hand and placed it on the phone. Compared to returning to the Bai family now, Jew naturally wanted to stay with second brother more. Moreover, she had never done homework or eaten with second brother. So very quickly, Jew dialed the number according to her memory. Bai Juan did not pick up. It was probably because it was an unfamiliar phone number. Jew used her phone to call again, whose phone is vibrating. In the classroom, Li Hailu took out his phone and looked at it. There was no reaction. He turned around and looked at Bai Juan, who was thinking about something. Bai Juan took out his phone from the desk. He glanced at the caller ID and immediately picked up the call. Hello. Little brother, you don't have to pick me up from school in the afternoon. I'm going to my friend's house to do my homework. I'll go back later. In the end, Jew didn't say anything about who she liked. Enchanting listened beside her and smiled ambiguously. Bai Juan's fingers paused. Friend? It's me. Enchanting reached out and took Jew's phone over. After hearing the voice on the other side, Bai Juan frowned heavily. The coldness between his lips was on the verge of erupting. Enchanting. I really didn't expect young Master Bai to remember other people's names. Enchanting smiled as she said, Don't worry, I won't do anything to a Jew. Although I don't like your group of people, a Jew is different. A Jew is so cute, I can't wait to like her. Hearing this, Bai Juan's eyes completely turned cold. Li Hailu was very close to Bai Juan, so naturally, he could hear Enchanting's last sentence. He subconsciously looked into Bai Juan's eyes. As expected, the hostility in his eyes could destroy everything. Li Hailu subconsciously said, fuck. Bai Juan's voice was so deep that it seemed to be able to brew a storm. Enchanting, I'm warning you, you'd better send a Jew back right now, or I won't let you off. Bai Juan, you seem to have made a mistake about one thing. Enchanting laughed softly. A Jew was not kidnapped by me. She willingly followed me. Otherwise, you can ask a Jew. As she said this, Enchanting returned the phone. At this point, it should be enough. Although this was a little angry, if Bai Juan had been more careful and made his surroundings not so complicated, a Jew would not have been ostracized. Of course, he had to let Bai Juan have a taste of this uncomfortable feeling. Because only through this method could he be sure whether Bai Juan treated a Jew as his sister or if there were other feelings. Chapter 1209. If it was really just a younger sister, even if a Jew liked him, they would not destroy someone else's relationship just because a Jew liked him. A tough melon is not sweet. Although the people in the family were rude and unreasonable, such as father and brother, they still understood the basic principle of not forcing others. Especially when it came to relationships. As long as Bai Juan did not have that intention, their Jew did not have to stick to anyone. When the time came, her family would immediately come over to pick her up. On the Bai family side, they should be grateful. But there was one thing. If that was really the case, in the future, they would avoid letting a Jew see Bai Juan again. After all, it was really difficult to forget the feelings of a childhood sweetheart. He did not want to see a Jew sink into the memories of her childhood. The future was still very long. From a selfish point of view, as an older brother, Enchanting really did not want to see a scene like today again. A Jew was eating alone at the table, while the other side was bustling with noise and excitement. This kind of feeling was the most hurtful. As an older brother, it was difficult for Enchanting not to be angry, but he still smiled on the surface. He said to a Jew dotingly, "A Jew, Bai Juan suspects that I am abducting you. Hearing this, Aju immediately said, "Little brother, Brother Chinchin is not lying. I am the one who volunteered to go with him. I want to go to his house as a guest." Even through the phone, it was not difficult to tell that Aju was serious when she said this. Bai Juan's fingers clenched tightly. Master Li could not bear to see him like that, so he could only lower his head and say to the phone, "Aju, you've only known that person for a day, and you're already saying that you want to go to his house as a guest. Do you know that this is very dangerous? Be good, the world of adults is not as simple as you think. No need." Aju also knew that Master Li was worried about her, so she said in a low voice, "I'm not a child anymore. I know the basics of who is good and who is bad. I'll go home after I finish my homework. Tell little brother that I won't go home for dinner." After saying that, Aju hung up the phone. After all, in that way, if she continued to talk, she would only hear more bad things about her second brother. She did not like others to say bad things about her second brother. Only she knew how much second brother doted on her. Li Hailu could not believe that Aju hung up the phone just like that. She was never like this in the past. What's more, he wouldn't say that he was going to visit a friend's house. Moreover, this friend could not be anyone else, but he had to choose a person who had provoked Bai Juan as soon as he arrived. What the hell is going on? Li Hailu scratched his head in frustration. Xiao Lin looked at the strands of hair that fell in front of Bai Juan's eyes. From this angle, he could not see Bai Juan's expression at all. However, it was precisely because he could not see anything that he seemed even more lonely. Master Li still wanted to say something, but Bai Juan stood up and put on the headphones that were still around his neck. He grabbed his school bag and walked out of the classroom. She couldn't attend the last 2 classes in the afternoon. Xiao Lin immediately followed him. Bai Juan was on the phone, and his voice was very deep. "Check on Helian Chinchin." "Yes, she's a new transfer student from our class. After you find her, send me her address." In number 1 high school, every student would add their home address when they entered the school. It was actually not difficult to know where Helian Chinchin lived. However, no one would have thought that Helian Chinchin would add a fake address on the file. After Bai Juan received this news, the bottle of BLK mineral water in his hand fell to the ground. Lock onto the location of his phone. Bai Juan was really anxious. He was afraid that something would happen to Aju when he met a person who even had a fake address. However, people also knew that although Aju was small, there were not many people who could beat her. Unless she was willing, no one could take her away. Bai Juan lowered his eyes. His hands under the white down jacket clenched tighter and tighter until they reached a certain point. Only then did he let go of his hand. The sky gradually darkened. The sudden heavy snow made the entire city look extremely beautiful. Helian Chinchin was taking Aju to the supermarket. The place where he lived now was actually very close to the school. This school district house had been available for a long time so that if anything happened to Aju, they could deal with it in time. "What do you want to eat? I'll make it for you." Without outsiders, Helian Chinchin looked even gentler. He was clean to begin with. He was clearly a modern person, but he always gave people a feeling that he was young and elegant. Now that he was wearing a pure white sweater, it made his temperament even more outstanding. No matter where he went, he would always be a top-notch school hunk. He pushed the shopping cart in the supermarket and let Aju sit inside. When he lowered his head and spoke to Aju, it had already attracted many people's attention. "Oh my God, did you hear that handsome guy speak? His voice is so nice. Is he here to push his sister to buy things? I also want to have a brother like him. His sister is also very beautiful. Look at those round black eyes looking back and forth. There's even a cat on her head. Mommy, my heart is about to melt." Aju heard the voice beside her, but her attention was focused on Qinchen's words. Her big eyes were pleasantly surprised. "Second brother, are you making it for me?" "Yes." Hellion Qinchen threw a baby cabbage into the shopping cart and smiled at Aju. "I'll push you forward. Put whatever you want to eat first into the shopping cart." "Okay." Aju's mood, which had been low for the whole day, finally improved. She just sat on the shopping cart. Whatever she pointed at, Hellion Qinchen took it. The siblings bought a whole cart of ingredients. For this reason, Aju seriously expressed her worry. "Second brother, I eat more. Will I make you poor?" They all said that second brother came to school on a bicycle, so he probably didn't have much money. Thinking about how her second brother always gave her a lot of pocket money every year for so many years, Aju felt more and more that she had dragged her second brother down. When Hellion Qinchen heard his sister's words, he couldn't help but laugh softly. "Don't worry, the money on second brother's card is enough for you to eat for the rest of your life. What else do you want?" No. Aju had always been a girl who knew how to save money. However, as her brother, Hellion Qinchen obviously hadn't bought enough. It wasn't easy for him to take his sister shopping. Even if they went to the supermarket, they still bought and bought. Aju stood obediently to the side. Hellion Qinchen saw the plush ears hanging in the supermarket. Without thinking, he took them off and put them on Aju's head. "Do you like this?" "I like it." Aju nodded at the mirror. She looked extremely cute. Chapter 12:10. Hellion Qinchen was also happy to see this. Since she was already here and it was winter, she might as well buy all the equipment that she needed to buy for Aju. Fluffy ears, cotton gloves with tiger claws, and stacks of masks. The gloves and ears were all put on in the supermarket. Aju was wearing a school uniform, and with these things, she looked like a cosplayer who had just come down from a comic exhibition. She was beautiful and cute. That exquisite little face was already a plus point. Now that she was sitting on the back seat of the bicycle with a lot of things in her arms, she attracted a lot of people to watch. Hellion Qinchen sat in front with a faint smile. She turned around and fixed Aju's crooked cat ears before stepping on the stirrups. It was just a very ordinary bicycle, but because the person riding it was Hellion Qinchen, the scene was surprisingly beautiful. The pure white sweater matched his face that was stunning no matter when you looked at it. Snowflakes fell on his black hair, and the clean smile on his face was like the sun, hard to fade. Since they were near the school, of course, they would be seen by others. When the students walked out of the school gate in their school uniforms, they all stretched out their hands. "Isn't that the handsome senior who just transferred here?" "Who's behind him?" "His sister." "What sister?" "That's the sister of school Bobai." "Aw. Isn't this handsome guy at odds with school Bobai?" "I'm not sure, but don't you think that these two people are a good match? Look at their eyes, they're full of pink." For a moment, rumors spread throughout the entire campus like water waves. Shaolin was among that group of people, but unfortunately, he walked out too late and only had time to see Aju's back. Li Hailu was furious. "Tell me, what does this Hellion Qinchen mean? Did she deliberately bring Aju around the school gate? Aju too, why did she get on his car?" Shaolin did not respond to him. He took out his phone and called Baijuan without thinking. "Hello, I saw Aju. You don't have to look for her. She is indeed fine." Shaolin paused for a moment before saying, "She's with Hellion Qinchen. They're in Hellion Qinchen's car. They probably went to her house. The two of them bought a lot of things." There was suddenly no sound from Baijuan's side. Less than 2 seconds later, Shaolin heard the beep of the disconnect. The more Li Hailu thought about this matter, the more sullen he felt. Enchanting's address couldn't be found. Baizhuan thought that Iju was in danger, but he didn't expect the result to be like this. He must be feeling bad now. He's in the Bai family now. There's a guest at home. Shaolin carried his backpack and glanced behind him. He did not say much and only said, "Let's go over too." Li Hailu nodded. "That's all we can do for now." The guest of the Bai family was none other than Gu Rou, or Old Master Gu. It would be Baizhuan's birthday in 2 days. Of course, the coming-of-age ceremony of the Bai family's only grandson was attended by many people from the upper class. The Bai and Gu families were discussing how to make Baizhuan's birthday party low-key and not lose face. Old Master Bai meant that the children were still in school, so they should not be too extravagant and wasteful. They should not let these things distract them. After all, the exam was coming. But even if that was the case, it wouldn't really be that simple to carry out. After all, Baizhuan's birthday was not his birthday alone. It was the exchange of power in the entire Bai family, so they could not be careless anywhere. But it was obvious that Baizhuan's mind was not on this today. Old Master Gu stopped and smiled. "Baizhuan, the exam is coming soon. I'm a little tired from studying these few days. If you're tired, go and rest first. Let my girl accompany you. She's the best at making people happy." "No need. Thank you, Grandpa Gu." Baizhuan stood up as he spoke. "Grandpa, I'm going out for a while." Old Master Bai frowned. "You're still going out at this time?" "I'm going to pick up Iju." Baizhuan lowered his head and put on his coat. He did not care about how heavy the snow was outside and wanted to rush out. Old Master Bai called someone to stop him and walked over with his dragon-headed walking stick. "There are guests at home. If Iju wants to come back, she will call you. I've taught you since you were young that you have to know your limits when you do things. Now we're discussing your birthday, not someone else's. You can leave after you're done talking." Gu Rou also walked over at this time, as if she wanted to help him out. "Grandpa Baizhuan is also worried about Iju, but it should be fine. I heard that Iju is with a friend and will come back sooner or later." When Li Hailu and the others pushed open the door and walked in, they heard this sentence. Gu Rou gave him a look, indicating for him to stop Baizhuan and not make things more complicated. It was not that Li Hailu and Shaolin did not want Baizhuan to go, but they knew that Baizhuan was not in the right state. Moreover, where could they find him? The addresses left were all fake, and the phone's GPS could not be set. The strangest thing was that even the tracker on Iju's phone had lost its response. A few juniors pulled Baizhuan and brought him upstairs. Originally, the three of them did not want to bring Gu Rou along. Gu Rou stuck out her tongue helplessly and said, "I have no choice. My grandfather asked me to come up and take a look." With such an excuse, they could not chase him away. Gu Rou was very smart. She did not talk to Baizhuan. Instead, she asked Li Hailu in a low voice, "Hailu, I heard from my classmates that Iju followed that transfer student home. Could this be true?" Li Hailu did not say anything. Gu Rou let out a long sigh. "She's too young. She doesn't know that her family will worry about her. When she comes back later, don't scold her. I'm worried that she will have reverse psychology. The more we scold her, the closer she will get to that transfer student." Li Hailu clenched his fists. He really did not understand how things turned out like this. The snow was still falling outside. The wind hit the glass, making a sound again and again. In the clean and bright semi-open kitchen, Enchanting cut the diced eggplant and crushed the tomatoes. With a crash, she put them into the pot. When the fragrance filled the air, the adorable Iju went over. She was in charge of getting the seasoning for her second brother. Hellion Chinchin used her chopsticks to pick up a piece of diced eggplant and put it in Aju's mouth. Then, she asked her to scoop the rice herself. Aju ran. She took the chopsticks one moment and the rice cooker the next. She did not rest for a moment. When the 4 dishes were ready, the 2 siblings sat down. Aju first helped her brother scoop the rice. Then, she picked up her big bowl and buried her head in it. Hellion Chinchin did not move her chopsticks. Instead, she took out her phone and snapped a picture of her. In the photo, Aju still had furry ears. When she raised her head, her big eyes were filled with confusion. That bowl was even bigger than her face. It was the embodiment of perfect cuteness. Then, she picked up her big bowl and buried her head in it. Hellion Chinchin did not move her chopsticks. Instead, she took out her phone and snapped a picture of her. In the photo, Aju still had furry ears. When she raised her head, her big eyes were filled with confusion. That bowl was even bigger than her face. It was the embodiment of perfect cuteness. It seems that the transfer student treats Aju well. He even bought so many things for Aju. Aju ignored her. She only raised her eyes and said to Baijuan, "I'm going upstairs." She carried her things and walked towards the stairs. The little white cat followed behind her obediently. Baijuan's clenched hands loosened and loosened. Finally, he took a step forward and pulled her back. His voice was very deep and sounded a little hoarse. "Have you eaten? If you haven't, I'll go make something for you." "There's no need. I've eaten." Through the mask, Aju's voice sounded even more formal and polite. Baijuan did feel something at that moment. For the past 2 days, he had always felt that something was wrong. That was politeness. She was clearly still a very obedient person, but she was no longer the Aju who liked to stick to him. She had actually learned to be polite in front of him. When Baijuan thought of this, his eyes suddenly trembled. Even his heart also felt a painful stuffiness. He knew Aju better than anyone else. Even Gu Qing, who had appeared before, had not made Baijuan feel such a strong sense of uneasiness. Because no matter what Gu Qing gave Aju had never accepted it. Aju was always very polite to outsiders. She would not easily accept anyone's things. Other than these brothers who had grown up with her, she would return whatever others gave her even if she accepted it. But today, the things she was holding in her hands all showed that the person who bought her these things was special to her. Special. As long as he thought of these 3 words. Baijuan felt as if even breathing had become 100 times more uncomfortable. In the end, old Master Bai was still worried. He walked over and picked Aju up with a smile before saying, "Why is little Aju so cute today? You even bought a pair of cat ears." "It was Brother Chinchin who bought it for me." Aju was really the best in everything. She immediately took out her phone and showed it to old Master Bai. "Grandpa Bai, look at this. This is Brother Chinchin. Isn't he very good looking?" Aju definitely took after her big brother, Bailey Shangxie. To put it simply, Bailey Shangxie was a maniac who showed off his brother, and Aju was a maniac who showed off her brother. In short, both the brother and sister were showing off Hellion Chinchin. Old Master Bai lowered his head and looked at the photo. He could not help but feel a little absent-minded. It was strange. Why did this youth look a little familiar? "What's his surname?" Old Master Bai asked. Aju said, "Hellion. His name is Hellion Chinchin." Speaking of which, she also liked her second brother's name very much. She just did not know who gave her name. Why was she called Joe? To be honest, she felt that he was too lazy to give her a name. He casually gave her a number, and it was a very meaningless number. Achoo. In the 8 hells of the demon world, glaciers, snow, and spider lilies bloomed. Bailey Jia Ju's slender fingers supported his lower jaw as he sat on the demon's throne that was filled with corpses. His sudden movement caused the demons who were still swimming like goldfish below to raise their heads in unison. Fuck, what was going on? The Emperor actually sneezed. The fire Qilin also stood at the side, swinging its flaming tail. After hesitating for a long time, it said, "Master, what are you doing? Could it be that you missed the Princess Consort?" Cold. Bailey Jia Ju's voice was very faint as he gave it 2 words. The fire Qilin was speechless. You, a great demon who had lived for thousands of years, would catch a cold. Who were you lying to? Chapter 12:12. Why? Is it strange that I caught a cold? Baligaju stood up. His half-opened black robe brushed across the ground, and a terrifying demonic aura greeted him. The fire Qilin immediately shook its head. The group of demons also shook their heads. The demon world was in turmoil. Baligaju did not look at them. He walked into the hell of wisdom. With every step he took, black feathers would fall. This was indeed a kingdom of death. Blue bouquets and a river that spread out. Countless undead floated on it. At the end of the river was an ancient divine beast called Tunshin. It seemed to have fallen asleep. It just lay by the river and lowered its tail into the river. Everything in the demon world seemed to be not to be trifled with. However, some people did not know that she had really provoked someone she should not have provoked. 3,000 feet above, the world was noisy. In the Bai family's hall, Aju was still looking at her phone with old Master Bai. Bai Juan and the others were standing at the side. Of course, they also saw the group photo inside. In the photo, Aju was being held in Helian Qingchen's arms. Both of them had special effects. There was a red dot on their noses, 3 beards on their faces, and a pair of pink and white ears on their heads. They looked like 2 cats. Not only would Helian Qingchen's appearance in the photo not diminish his temperament, but it would also make him appear more agile and handsome. Even Gu Rou could not help but chuckle and say, "This transfer student is really good-looking." Bai Juan clenched his hands tightly and looked at Aju, who treated the photo in the phone as a treasure. He did not say anything. Old Master Bai patted Aju's head. "If Aju is not sleepy, don't go up first. We are talking about your little brother's birthday party. You should also listen. When someone comes, Grandpa Bai is afraid that he won't be able to take care of you." Aju nodded and sat down at the side. She was still wearing a mask, but she looked obedient. In fact, Aju had always been sensible. This was not because of her personality, but because of her upbringing since she was young. As long as the guest didn't choke her, she wouldn't embarrass him. Even if she didn't like this person, she understood that this was the Bai family after all. The Bai family wanted to befriend someone, so she couldn't ruin their relationship just because she didn't like him. Old Master Bai thought that since Aju had returned, that brat's heart should be able to settle down. He took advantage of the time to talk about some details of the birthday banquet. Aju listened attentively. In the middle, there would be a segment where the little brothers and friends gathered to play. They were all young men and women between the ages of 17, 18, and 20. It should not be appropriate for her to go. Old Master Gu was still discussing with Old Master Bai and felt that this plan was not bad. Aju didn't say anything either. She secretly decided that after the birthday party was over, she would give the gift she had bought to her little brother. After Old Master Gu and Old Master Bai finished discussing, they brought Bai Juan to the study. It seemed that the Gu family was going to stay at the Bai family's house for the night. Aju lowered her head and packed her things. She also planned to go back to her room. However, Gu Rou spoke at this moment. It's indeed not bad to celebrate alone, but Aju is still young, so it's not convenient for her to follow us. Aju, why don't you go and tell your brother to cancel the celebration alone? It doesn't matter if we play or not. The most important thing is that you have to be happy. Don't get into a fight with your brother on your birthday. I won't. Aju raised her eyes and looked at Guro. Her eyes were very clear, as if she could see through everything. Li Hailu was not thinking about whether to celebrate alone or not. It was about what happened today. Aju, you and Heli and Qingqin just left like that. Have you considered Baijuan's feelings? Aju turned her body to the side. She was still wearing a mask on her face. Facing these questions, she did not say anything. She just buried her head and put the furry cat claw gloves into her school bag. Li Hailu's voice became low. Baijuan really dotes on you too much. Hailu. Shaolin grabbed Li Hailu's arm. Li Hailu struggled. Let go of me. I have to tell Aju. You guys are with your friends, and I'm with my friends. What's so difficult about this? Aju's gaze indifferently interrupted Li Hailu's words. I won't be like you guys and deny a person just because of a few words from others. I know very well who is really good to me. Li Hailu really did not expect Aju to talk to him like this. Her small face was still cute, but the look in her eyes was different. Li Hailu scratched his hair in frustration. Aju, I didn't mean to blame you. I was anxious. Anxious, do you understand? I understand. Aju thought for a moment and reached out her hand. She tiptoed and touched Li Hailu's head. Li Hailu was also worried that if he could not explain it clearly, Aju would ignore him. He loved Aju very much. It was because he loved Aju very much that he saw her abandon her brothers for another person who appeared out of nowhere. That was why Li Hailu was so angry. However, he did not know that the key problem was not this. Alright, since the misunderstanding has been resolved, everyone shouldn't be so distressed. Guro smiled faintly at the side. Let's talk about the birthday party. When the time comes, there will be a lot of people. Originally, it was best to do a Western-style buffet, but there will be meat in every dish. If Aju really can't eat meat here, I'll tell Grandpa bye and we'll change it to something else. How about it? Although Western-style food was very high class, Aju could not eat it. There was nothing she could do. Aju turned her head and looked at the person in front of her who was smiling brightly. She had told herself many times that she had to get along well with her little brother's girlfriend. After all, her little brother could not be her little brother alone. Although it was very uncomfortable to say such things, so much so that she would still feel a little sad at night. But since her little brother had chosen this person, she would give them at least some respect. But it was obvious that this person did not need her respect. However, she also knew very well that some people could not always accommodate her. When she first entered the door, she learned that they all wanted to eat meat. Aju did not understand. She had never forced anyone to eat vegetarian with her. Why did Guro say that everyone was taking care of her as long as she was happy? It sounded like she was being unreasonable. Don't worry about me. Aju put her backpack on her shoulder. You can do whatever you want at the birthday party. After saying that, she did not stop and went straight upstairs. Chapter 12-13. After walking to the room, Aju bent her small body and took out all the gifts she had bought for Baijuan. Then, she counted them there. After counting them, she put them back where they were. She did not know why, but she had clearly grown up. But at this moment, she really missed her mother and brothers. Aju opened the scripture and read a paragraph. Then, she stared at her phone in a daze for a while. On the screen was the scene of her second brother hugging her and meowing like a cat. Jill looked at it and laughed. Her actions were very cute as she kissed the phone. Then, she whispered, "Second brother, see you tomorrow." It was probably because she was too tired from playing with Enchanting today. They went shopping, bought things, and took photos. Jill had not gone to the bathroom to wash up yet. She fell asleep on the desk just like that. The faint light shone down and shone on her face. It was very clean and fair, as if even the tiny hair on her face could be seen clearly. When Baizhuan pushed the door open and entered, this was the scene he saw. Following that, his footsteps could not help but slow down a lot in order not to disturb Jill. Baizhuan did not take a shower either. When he sat in the study and listened to his grandfather and the others talk, he was also absent-minded. It was not until he saw the person lying in the room that his heart began to slowly calm down. Baizhuan was wearing a light blue sweater. Such clothes had always been very picky, but when he wore it, he did not feel out of place at all. Instead, it made him look even more handsome and noble. He picked up his cotton jacket and walked to Jill's side without batting an eyelid. He put it on the child's shoulder. Then, he squatted down and raised his head to look at the little face that was sleeping soundly. He reached out and wiped away the dirt on her face. Then, he curled his lips into a smile. Jill had a problem when she was asleep, which was that she liked to chant scriptures. When she was young, Baizhuan would often tease her with this matter. Looking at her small mouth constantly moving and her cheeks bulging, she was like a little squirrel. She was very cute. It was the same now. Baizhuan poked Jill's pear-blossom dimples with his finger and curled his lips again. Then, he bent down with a faint smile and wanted to carry her up. Just as he exerted force, he realized that she was still holding a phone in her other hand. The phone was not locked, and the person on the screen was Enchanting. Baizhuan's figure suddenly stopped, and his hand unconsciously exerted force. He knew very well what it was like to like someone. No matter what, he wanted to see that person, that small figure. He recalled the days when the two of them were together when they were young. At that time, Jill would always obediently follow by his side. Her small hand tugged at his clothes, and the other hand held a steamed bun. When did he start to change? What's so good about Enchanting? Why do you value her so much? Jill, tell me, why can't I? Baizhuan lowered his eyes to look at the person he had placed on the bed. His voice was so low that it seemed to be filled with infinite wetness. His black hair fell down and covered his eyes. The next day, when Jill woke up, there was no one by her side. Someone covered her with a blanket. Jill didn't need to think to know that it was the little brother who covered her. She rolled up, changed into her school uniform and shoes, carried her school bag, and went downstairs. Other than Gu Qing, the rest of the Gu family were sitting at the dining table, chatting and laughing. Before Jill walked over, she heard Gu Ro say to Auntie Wang, "Auntie Wang, the shrimp wonton you made is really delicious. There's also the beef patty. It's crispy on the outside and soft on the inside. The feeling of biting it is super good. I used to only like Western food. It seems that I have to try more Chinese food in the future, provided that these are all made by Auntie Wang." Auntie Wang smiled and said, "Western food is not as delicious as Chinese food. The more you eat, the more delicious it is. Miss Gu, you eat first. I'll go and fish out the noodles and use beef as toppings. Young master likes to eat this." "Auntie Wang, when we weren't around in the past, did Baizhuan not eat meat?" Gu Ro asked indirectly. Auntie Wang was also unintentional. "That's right. Young master dotes on Mississippi. It's been a long time since meat dishes appeared on this table. Baizhuan is really working hard. He's always accommodating another person. Gu Rou raised her eyebrows. Auntie Wang smiled. When these two people live together, one will definitely accommodate the other. Moreover, young master is very happy. Auntie Wang is right. Bai Juan has always been good to Aju. After all, she is his younger sister. After Gu Rou said this, she scooped up another wonton and ate it. I want to eat another bowl. It's too delicious. Listening to this conversation, Aju stood at the stairs and paused for a moment before changing her direction. She couldn't smell such a big meat smell. She might as well go to the school gate for breakfast. She wore cat ears on her head and cat claw gloves on her hands. Aju's outfit was undoubtedly very eye-catching. In addition, there was a white cat lying on her shoulder. In the morning, the vicinity of the school was especially lively. There was a lot of food to eat, and the line was like a street. Aju looked at this, asked for a little, looked at that, and asked for a little more. In the end, she thought for a while and asked for 10 steamed buns and cabbage that she thought were the best. Everyone, don't misunderstand. These 10 were not for her to eat. She wanted to buy them for Heli and Chinchin. Aju knew very well that the people at home could not get close to her, so the only person who could come to the school was definitely her second brother. Yesterday, when she was eating, she had noticed that other than her second brother, there was not even a cook at home. In these 7 days, she had to help her eldest brother take good care of her second brother. Therefore, in a short while, under the gaze of the entire school, Aju carried a large pile of breakfast to the high school section of No. 1 high school. On the other side, the lively Bai family. After taking a shower, Bai Juan changed into his school uniform and went downstairs. He carried his black school bag on one shoulder and walked towards the living room. Gu Rou and the 2 old men were sitting at the dining table, but Aju was not there. Where's Aju? Bai Juan asked Auntie Wang as he took a sip of the milk on the dining table. Auntie Wang did not say anything. Gu Rou chuckled and said, she should have left early. I just saw her go out. She didn't even eat breakfast. Bai Juan looked at the vegetable bun that had not even been touched. He then looked at the other plate and frowned. The pie made today is filled with meat. Auntie Wang knew what the young master meant. She quickly walked over and said, Old Master Gu and Miss Gu have just returned from abroad. They are not used to eating Chinese vegetarian food. Bai Juan heard this and did not say anything else. He put his school bag on his left shoulder. Gu Rou immediately stood up. Bai Juan, Auntie Wang made your favorite beef noodles. You can leave after you finish eating. I'll leave with you. Old Master Gu heard his granddaughter's words and looked over with a smile. Gu Rou still had a smile on her face, and her eyes were jumping with mischief. She knew that with her grandfather watching by the side, Bai Juan would not reject her. Chapter 12-14. However, she was still wrong. Bai Juan turned around and did not even look at her. His tone was very cold. Adjutant Zhang, go and drive the car over and send Miss Gu away. I'll take the Li family's car to school. Also, don't let others make decisions for me on what to eat for breakfast in the future. After saying that, Bai Juan did not say anything else. He picked up his school bag and walked out of the Bai family's house. Adjutant Zhang was stunned for a moment before he reacted. Yes. Gu Rou's expression was a little ugly. Old Master Bai frowned. When did this grandson of his become so unruly? This was obviously embarrassing the Gu family. Old Master Gu did not care about what to eat. He only felt that Bai Juan seemed to be a little angry. In order to ease the atmosphere, he teased his granddaughter, look at you. You're being despised for chasing after him too closely. Gu-ro held the bamboo chopsticks in her hand and smiled. Grandfather, what are you talking about? I just wanted to get a ride on Baizhuan's car. Now that I have a car, it's the same for me to go to school myself. Although she said this, Gu-ro was very unconvinced in her heart. She did not expect that Baizhuan would not even care about their relationship on the surface for that child. This did not seem like something he should do. However, it did not matter. She was not in a hurry. Even in the cold, she had the confidence to warm him up. On the other side, in the high school section of number 1 high school, 3rd year class A. The people walking back and forth in the corridor of the stairs were all 3rd year high school students who were about to take the exam. They held advanced mathematics books in one hand and bought breakfast in the other. They walked very quickly. Under normal circumstances, 2 or 3 people walked together. Especially when it was almost time for the exam, they would basically do everything together with their good friends. The girls were wearing school uniforms and carrying their school bags. When they walked to the door of the class, they suddenly stopped. It was not for anything else, but because there was someone leaning against the railing who was not supposed to be here. That person was none other than little Aju, who was carrying a big pile of breakfast. She was still dressed the same as in the morning. She stood there cutely. Whenever a person walked over, she would raise her big eyes to take a look. Even the white cat on her head would follow her movements. When some people saw this scene, they were really so cute that they immediately took out their phones to take photos and post them on their WeChat moments. Does your school have cute things from number 1 high school? The other schools really didn't have it. Some of the seniors in the 3rd year of high school really liked little Aju. In their hearts, Aju was much more handsome than many boys. For example, the last time she carried a suitcase. Therefore, when Aju stood there, the senior sisters all surrounded her. Aju, are you here to look for Colonel Bai? Sisters will help you call them now. Her skin was even fairer up close. I really want to pinch it. Wearing cat paw gloves was too cute. Aju hugged the pile of breakfast and shook her head. No, I'm waiting for Brother Chinchin. I looked through the classroom just now, but he wasn't inside. Brother Chinchin. Who is it? Some people were still in a daze. The other girl exclaimed, it's that handsome transfer student. Only then did people realize that the handsome transfer student was not called a transfer student, but Hellion Chinchin. Wait for him. The female seniors looked at each other. Did they hear wrongly? However, Aju nodded her head and continued to stand there waiting like a small mushroom. The handsome transfer student, oh no, I mean Hellion Chinchin. He seems to have come very late. The female senior said to Aju, why don't you wait in the classroom with us? Yes, enter the classroom. Some of the top students had no resistance to Aju at all and gave the person who suggested it a big thumbs up. Just like that, Aju was pushed into Class A's classroom by a group of fangirls. Someone was still introducing to Aju. Aju, that's Colonel Bai's seat. We just arranged a table. Do you want to sit over there? Aju remembered the conversation at the Bai family today. She paused and asked, where's Brother Chinchin's seat? Ah. That person was stunned at first, then pointed to the seat by the window on the far right. Aju looked there and then walked over with her things in her arms. She tilted her head and bent her small body to look inside. There was nothing in the desk, not even a book. Why didn't second brother bring a book to class? It seemed that he definitely did not listen to the teacher seriously. Aju muttered and lowered her head. She was about to put all the breakfast on the desk. Baizhuan, Li Hailu, and the others walked in. The moment they saw Aju, all 3 of them paused for a moment. Aju had also finished her breakfast. She raised her head without any defense and met Bai Juan's incomparably deep gaze. Li Hailu frowned. This is Helianchin's desk. It was already very obvious what a Jew was doing. Every one of them had eyes. Bai Juan looked at the breakfast that was already sharp. His fingers that were holding the school bag tightly gripped it one by one. Even his smooth joints were a little white from the grip. When he went out, he was still worried that she would be hungry because she had not eaten. He did not expect that in fact, she did not need him to worry at all. Not only did she know how to eat, but she also learned to bring breakfast to people other than him. Bai Juan once again realized how special Helianchin was in a Jew's heart. The shock in Li Hailu's eyes was so obvious that even Xiao Lin frowned and looked at a Jew. A Jew did not have much of a reaction. She lifted her school bag. A Jew, you really? Li Hailu was very angry. Do you like her that much? Xiao Lin reached out and pulled Li Hailu back. Hailu. No. This child has to be taught. She doesn't know anything at all. She always does things her own way. She doesn't care if others will make things difficult for her. The things that happened before were all small matters. We can all listen to her. But today, we can't do it this time. Li Hailu was really sad. He did not understand why a Jew would go against them for an outsider. She can be good to anyone, but she has to be good to Helianchin. A Jew opened her mouth to interrupt him, her voice was serious. That's right. I just like Brother Chinchin. Even if I make things difficult for you, this fact can't be changed. So you just think that I'm insensible. After saying that, a Jew was about to walk out of the classroom with the little white cat on her head. Bai Juan turned around and pulled her back. He lowered his eyes and said in a deep voice, "Why did you leave without waiting for me to eat breakfast?" A Jew did not want to talk about meat and vegetables. If she said it, it would seem that others would have to accommodate her. She would only make things difficult for others. However, she did not want to lie, so she shook her head. Chapter 12-15. Bai Juan no longer had the strength to ask anything else. After she said that she liked Helianchin. No matter what the result was, it was meaningless, wasn't it? He had always been on guard against Gu Qing. He even felt that a Jew would like someone of the same age as him. But now, Bai Juan knew that the person who could really take a Jew away from him was not Gu Qing. When Helianchin walked into the classroom with her school bag on one shoulder, a Jew had already left. He was dressed very refreshingly. Even though it was snowing, it did not affect his temperament. When he saw the desk that was filled with breakfast, he yawned lazily and smiled. This was perhaps the tacit understanding between the siblings. Helianchin did not need to think to know who bought these food. After sitting down, she opened the plastic bag. There were a total of 10 steamed buns and vegetables inside. It seemed that her little sister had equated her appetite with hers. This was the rhythm of feeding a pig. However, for Helianchin, as long as it was something bought by her little sister, she would finish it no matter how full she was. Therefore, as her brother, Helianchin did not even think about it. She opened her mouth and took a big bite of the steamed bun. Her left cheek was bulged by something, and it was very eye-catching. Oh my God, I didn't expect him to be so handsome even when eating. Can you even smile when eating steamed buns? What should I do? When I see him eat, I feel that even the steamed buns are good-looking. Helianchin could indeed give people such an effect. He smiled faintly as he held the steamed bun in one hand and typed with the other. He sent a WeChat message to a Jew. His side profile looked so handsome that people really could not get used to it. Li Hailu heard the surrounding sounds and threw the ballpoint pen on the table. He turned around and looked at Enchanting. The dissatisfaction in his heart had reached its peak. Enchanting smiled faintly. She took another steamed bun and ate it slowly. She knew that not only was Li Hailu looking at her, but also Bai Juan. Enchanting curved his thin lips. The effect was not bad. All in all, it was a beautiful morning. Although Enchanting was scolded by the teacher because she didn't take her first class to school, it didn't affect her mood. Aju's desk mate was different. Gu Qing supported himself with his arms and stood in front of Aju with his long legs. It was more or less embarrassing. "Little Bean, you've never brought me breakfast before." When he said this, Gu Qing was smiling, but there was no happiness in his eyes at all. Aju was also direct. "Give me your Alaskan sled dog, and I'll buy you breakfast." "Little Bean, I didn't expect you to know how to negotiate with others." Gu Qing couldn't help but laugh, "But you're really something. It's obvious that your brother and that Enchanting don't see eye to eye. Why are you still so nice to him? No wonder even my cousin is angry. Speaking of which, your brother and my cousin are developing quite quickly. Today, when I went to school, I even saw your family's car at the entrance of second high school. Now that my cousin is living in your house, it seems that Grandpa and Grandpa are very optimistic about the two of them." Aju didn't say anything. Instead, she turned on her phone and looked at the WeChat message her second brother had sent her. It was a selfie of him eating a steamed bun, and there were 2 words attached: delicious. Aju suddenly felt that no matter what Gu Qing said, she would not feel uncomfortable in her heart. Gu Qing also saw the photo. For some reason, he actually felt a little irritated. Why does he even want to send you a WeChat message for a meal? Aju ignored him. Gu Qing felt that he had never had so much patience with anyone before. "Oh right, tomorrow is your brother's birthday. I heard from my cousin that there will be a lot of people invited. The group of high school students will have a party alone. When the time comes, you can be with me. You're too young, and your brother has to worry about whether he will teach you bad things. Moreover..." At this point, Gu Qing paused. "The 2 elders seem to have the intention to set the engagement between my cousin and your brother. When the time comes, the one who will be toasting with Bai Juan will definitely be my cousin. With so many adults, it's not convenient for Bai Juan to bring you along." Engagement. Aju's fingers that were replying to the message stopped. How could she forget? Little brother was not like her. He could get married. Aju had never thought about what it would be like for little brother to get married. However, she knew very well that little brother had always wanted a family. If he had a family after getting married. However, it seemed that she could not accompany little brother anymore. Because she could imagine that in the near future, similar problems like vegetarian dishes and meat dishes would keep happening. At that time, it would be her fault for being insensible again. She did not like that. Aju suddenly thought of the birthday gifts that she had prepared a long time ago. There was also the problem of the dishes that they had discussed for the birthday party. Since it was so difficult, she would not participate. Just like today's breakfast, she could go to second brother for breakfast in the future. Yes, there was also lunch and dinner. Thinking of this, her chest did not feel so stuffy anymore. After Aju made up her mind, she deleted the WeChat message that she had already edited word by word. Then, she pressed the phone screen with her fingers. "Second brother, I want to sleep with you tomorrow." Enchanting looked at the message on her phone and frowned. Then, she replied seriously, "You can stay at my place until 12 o'clock. After 12 o'clock, I have to send you back to the Bai family. Then I'll stay until 12 o'clock. Aju muttered as she typed, "At noon, we have to eat together, and at night too." Enchanting smiled and replied with 3 words, "Of course." Aju was happy and began to think about what to eat for lunch. Ordinary people could not outrun Aju. As long as Aju ate in school, she would always be the first to appear at the selection window. It was the same today. The teacher in the third year of high school was still emphasizing the key points to remember today and the range of questions that would be tested in the college entrance examination over the years. The students in the middle school had already walked out of the classroom quickly. Everyone's common goal was the cafeteria. There were also people who ate outside the school, and there were also people who ordered takeout, but most people still chose to eat in school. After all, the food in number 1 high school was famous in the education world. It was delicious and cheap, and there were many kinds of food. Aju displayed her usual style, which was to buy as much as she could. She knew that her second brother loved to eat white rice like her, so she directly brought 6 boxes of rice and a lot of fried dishes. There were a total of 10 lunch boxes, all of which were carried by her. These lunch boxes would definitely be difficult for others to carry, but for Aju, there was no pressure at all. During this time, she did not forget to stop and help the weak senior sister carry a kettle. Chapter 12-16. The third-year high school students were finally done with their classes. Aju did not meet Baizhuan and the others who were walking out from the other side. She was waiting outside with a lunchbox in her hand. Her small face was fierce, and she looked serious and cute. When her big eyes saw Helly and Qinchin walking out, they immediately lit up. Helly and Qinchin had just finished eating 10 steamed buns and was still full. However, when she saw that her sister was very happy, her originally good-looking face revealed a bright smile that could almost make people's hearts beat faster. The students at the side turned into fangirls in minutes. They could not help but reach out to hold their faces. I want to change sides. I want to choose my Prince Charming again. I originally thought that I was very happy to see Baizhuan in Class A, but I didn't expect that there would be an even happier existence. Oh my God, did you see him not smiling for a minute? My heart, it's beating so fast. Helly and Qinchin walked past these students and walked towards her little sister. She reached out her hand and touched Aju's head. The intimate action was almost subconscious. Aju liked to be touched by her second brother the most. Following that, her eyes also smiled. The way she tilted her little head really looked like a little tiger. However, she was still a little troubled. I originally wanted to buy 5 more steamed buns, but I didn't have time to help people carry water. If I had known earlier, I would have carried them over my head. What if these things are not enough to eat? Helly and Qinchin glanced at the 10 lunch boxes and coughed lightly. Good girl, it's enough. Really? Aju raised her head and said very seriously, Second brother, you don't have to save money for me. I've kept the pocket money you've given me all these years. I can buy more. Helly and Qinchin immediately said, it's really enough. I'm definitely not saving money. He knew that his family members always had a special appetite when they were growing up. Almost every time his brother saw someone, he wanted to tear them apart and eat them. This was a problem since he was young. He was still considered normal. It was only when he was in junior high school that he started to act up. Speaking of which, Aju also took after her brother in this aspect. Although one ate people and was purely carnivorous. The other ate grains and was purely vegetarian. But they could eat so much. Indeed, he didn't have enough money to raise them. This time, Helly and Qinchin had another motivation to earn money. In the future, she would have to accept more missions. Otherwise, how would she be able to support her brother and sister? Aju did not know what her second brother was thinking. Her eyes were still searching for where to go for lunch. Helly and Qinchin had already reached out to take the lunch box she was holding and took her into the classroom. He was a new transfer and didn't have a desk mate. At this time, most of the students had gone to the cafeteria. Of course, some people would bring food to the classroom to eat. After all, it would not affect others. Aju followed her second brother and sat down. The cat's tail wagged above her head. She opened the lid of the lunchbox for the little white cat. After dividing half of the rice in dishes, she fed herself a mouthful of rice and ate it. Hellion Chinchin looked at her from the side and rolled up her sleeves with a smile. Just like when he was young, his older brother would roll up his sleeves for him. The girl who brought food back from the classroom held back for a long time. In the end, she secretly took a picture and posted it on her WeChat moments. Heavens, how can it be so sweet? Soon, this WeChat moments received a lot of reposts and comments. When Li Hailu saw this WeChat moments, he was about to buy something with Baizhuan and go back to the classroom to eat. He immediately changed his mind. How about this? Since there's still a lot of time, let's eat outside the school. I don't want to move. Baizhuan had already walked to the window. Shaolin also saw that WeChat moments and immediately pulled him back. How about we go to that popular steamed bun shop? How can you bring it back for Aju if you just order it? Other than rice, Aju's favorite thing to eat was hot steamed buns. It was obvious that Baizhuan was moved by Shaolin's words. He retracted his long legs and said, "Let's go." Shaolin and Li Hailu looked at each other. As expected, only mentioning Aju would change Master Bai's mind. The steamed buns at the entrance of the school were indeed delicious. The noodles used by the couple were very particular. They never added other messy things. They were all pinched and steamed. The skin was thin and the filling was big. It was very cold outside the school. At this time, there was definitely a queue. Baizhuan stood quietly in the middle of the crowd in his school uniform. He waited for half an hour for a few steamed buns. Li Hailu shook his head at the side. This is really not like Master Bai, who cherishes time like his life. One had to know that Baizhuan had always been a very well-planned person since he was young. He did what he should do. His self-discipline had always been very good. For him, it was probably only at this time that he would waste his time waiting in line. Shaolin put one hand in his pocket and pushed the glasses on his face. That's why I said that when it comes to Aju's matters, I will never be able to compare to him. Li Hailu was dumbfounded when he heard that. He's your biological child, and you're his descendant. Of course you can't compare to him. Shaolin looked at him and felt very annoyed. How should I put it? Hailu, sometimes I really don't know what to do to save your EQ, get lost. Li Hailu kicked Shaolin. At the age of 17, he liked to play on the streets. It was as if only in this way could he experience the purest kind of youth. It was still snowing outside the school. When Baizhuan bought the steamed buns, his black hair was stained with snow. However, he looked especially good-looking, especially after he took off his mask. The smile on his face made the girls in the queue blush. The students of No. 1 high school all knew that Baizhuan especially liked to wear masks in winter. It was just that with his long legs and narrow waist, his temperament was outstanding. These ordinary things became bonus points when they were worn by Baizhuan. Many people would feel their hearts thump because of his pair of pitch-black eyes. Baizhuan really had an appearance that could attract bees and butterflies. Even if he was wearing a pure black mask, it would not damage this kind of aura. Instead, it gave off a very cool feeling. Guro, why aren't you leaving? A girl bumped into Guro. Then, when she saw Baizhuan across the road, she smiled. I was wondering why you weren't leaving. So you saw your sweetheart. Guro looked at the tall and straight figure and pulled her classmate. Don't talk nonsense. He'll hear you later. So what if he hears us? The girl continued, "You're the school belle of number 2 high school. The school belle and the school belle are a perfect match. Moreover, your family members all know each other. Also, how did you come to school today? We all saw it. You came in the Bai family's car. Tell us honestly, did Bai send you to school?" Guro did not deny it. Instead, her face turned red. "I told you not to talk nonsense. Why are you still talking?" Okay, I won't talk anymore. Let's go look for them. Since we've met, let's have a meal together." Chapter 12:17. If it was any other time, Guro would definitely agree. But this was where she was smart. She knew when to stop. This was also why Guro avoided Baijuan when she said some things, because she knew that this person could not be provoked. Fortunately, Gu Qing did not know anything. He thought that she and Baijuan were really together and helped her by the side. But at the same time, Guro knew very well that if she went overboard with some things, the gains would not make up for the losses. What's there to eat? Avoid them. Let's shop for a while more. You guys also accompany me to pick out a gift. I'm going to give it to you tomorrow. I was wondering why you dragged us out to shop today. It turns out that you want to buy a birthday gift for Baijuan. You're buying it so secretly because you want to give Baijuan a surprise. Guro smiled and said, "Of course, birthday gifts have to be more mysterious. Guro, bring us to Baijuan's birthday party. Xiao Qing is Heilu's girlfriend anyway. Baijuan shouldn't mind." Guro patted her hand. "I'll definitely invite you guys. For this, we've even arranged a small party alone. When the time comes, we can have fun together." "Us?" The girl laughed. "Guro, could it be that you and School Bo Bai did this birthday together?" Guro pushed her. "You're talking nonsense again. My grandfather and Baijuan are family friends. My grandfather will be staying at the Bai family for the next 2 days because he wants to meet with his old friends. Baijuan's coming-of-age ceremony is no small matter, so my grandfather came up with an idea. This is not something I can decide." "Did I hear wrongly? You actually stayed at Baijuan's house?" The girl touched her. "Tell me honestly, did anything happen between you guys?" Guro blushed and did not say anything. She knew very well what expression was the most appropriate time to make. As for whether others would misunderstand or not, that had nothing to do with her. As expected, the 2 girls beside her widened their eyes. "Looks like there's progress." "Heavens, although it's you, Guro, I feel so jealous just thinking about that scene. You have to know that Baijuan has never allowed anyone to get close to him in the past. Don't ask me anymore. I'm going to buy a gift. The more Guro changed the topic, the more imagination the 2 girls had. They smiled and held Guro's hand. Since they were going to attend School Belle Bai's birthday party, it was definitely not good to go empty-handed. They had to pick out some gifts. Across the road, Baijuan had already bought the steamed buns. It was only when he entered the school that he remembered that he still had the passbook in his phone. Aju had sent him a message in the morning, saying that she would eat by herself this afternoon. In the end, he had no choice. Everything had become a subconscious action. He wanted to buy her favorite things, but he had forgotten about this fork in the road. Baijuan lowered his head and looked at the steaming vegetable bun in his hand. He still sent a WeChat message to Aju. "Are you eating now?" When Aju saw the WeChat message, her cheeks were stuffed with rice. She used one hand to reply, "Yes." After thinking for a while, she added, "I eat a lot. You don't have to worry about me." It would be a lie to say that he was not disappointed. Baijuan pressed his finger on his phone. Eat more. I'll pick you up after class. No need. Aju typed seriously. I'll eat outside tonight. I'll go back after I finish my homework. She had this idea when she went back yesterday. However, after what happened in the morning, Aju was even more certain of her idea. In the future, if she could eat outside, she would eat outside. It would also save others the trouble of accommodating her. Moreover, with her second brother here, she would definitely have to eat with him for the next few days. On the other side, Baizhuan looked at the last WeChat message and the picture on his moments. He stopped in his tracks and felt that the soup dumplings in his palm were burning hot. He looked at one of the people in the picture with a faint smile, while the other tilted her head with complete trust. His eyes felt a little piercing. Master Bai, why aren't you leaving? Li Hailu reached out and put his hand on his shoulder. Naturally, he saw his phone screen. His smile froze, and he immediately turned around to give Xiao Lin a look. Before Xiao Lin could say anything, Baizhuan put all the soup dumplings in his hands into their arms. Throw them away or eat them. It's up to you. Hey, Baizhuan. Li Hailu did not call him back no matter how hard he tried. He lowered his eyes and looked at the steaming buns. He knew that Baizhuan was feeling bad. After waiting in line for more than 20 minutes, this was the result. Why did Aju have to be like this? Li Hailu said dejectedly, what should we do now? Eat. Xiao Lin's eyes also darkened. He was more or less worried about Baizhuan. This was because even he could feel that Aju treated Hellion Qingchen differently. Not to mention Baizhuan, who was the most familiar with Aju. He had once thought about what would happen if Aju fell in love with someone else in the end. He knew Baizhuan better than anyone else. Baizhuan could not bear it at all. To Baizhuan, Aju was not only the person he liked, but also the person who had been by his side since he was young. The more reluctant he was to part with such a relationship, the more worried he would be about losing it. However, if he was really about to lose it, he really did not dare to imagine what Baizhuan would do. The snowflakes on the field fell one by one. After leaving the school, Baizhuan did not go home. Instead, he went to the dojo where Aju often went to practice martial arts. He stood there for an entire afternoon. When he returned to the Bai family, his black hair was covered in snow, and even his eyelashes were the same. Old Master Gu and Old Master Bai were playing chess in the living room. When they saw him like this, they were both stunned. Baizhuan, what's wrong with you? Nothing. Baizhuan held his school bag with one hand. His head was slightly lowered, and his black hair covered his face. Indeed, no one could see his expression clearly. Old Master Bai felt that something was not right, but his grandson was old after all, so he did not know what the problem was. When Gu Rou heard this news, she begged Auntie Wang to teach her how to make ginger soup so that she could serve it to Baizhuan. When Aju returned, she saw Gu Rou standing at the door of the room. She paused for a moment and walked to the guest room with the white cat on her head. Aju thought that tomorrow was her little brother's birthday. Even if she did not appear, she still had to deliver the gift. There was a message from Gu Qing on her phone. He asked Aju to promise to buy him breakfast, and he would give the Alaskan sled dog to Aju. Anyway, it was just a matter of breakfast, so Aju immediately agreed. The next day, at dawn, Aju packed her things and left the room. When she left, the servants had already started to set up the venue. No one noticed her, except for Gu Rou, who was scheming in her heart. Chapter 12:18. Aju. Gu Rou took advantage of the fact that she had not left the courtyard and ran over with a troubled expression on her face. I know you have some misunderstandings about me, but today is your brother's birthday. Many people will be here in the afternoon. You grew up in the mountains when you were young. Perhaps you don't understand that aristocratic families like ours always have a lot of misgivings. Your brother and I don't want you to be unhappy. If your expression isn't good, many people will be embarrassed, so I really hope that you can act a little happier. I heard from Gu Qing that you want to give Baijun a gift. That Alaska is too fierce and isn't suitable for it to appear at such a grand banquet. If it bites someone, it will be very difficult for the Bai family. If you only want to give a dog to your brother, you can wait until the banquet is over. During this time, you can play with us. What do you want to play? We will accompany you. How about it? Aju's voice was very calm as she gave her 2 words. No need. Seeing that she was about to leave, Guro quickly said, Aju, you didn't eat breakfast yesterday. Your brother is very worried about you. Today, Auntie Wang specially made noodles for you. It's vegetarian. You can leave after eating. Don't let your brother worry about you. Aju turned around. She had a small face and her eyes were very beautiful. She did not say anything. She just glanced at Guro. Guro was still smiling. You can't always do whatever you want just because you're a younger sister. You should know how important today's coming-of-age ceremony is to Baijun. Aju, although you're still young, there's something I want to tell you. Not everyone is worthy of the Bai family. Compared to a dog, what Baijun wants more is endless power, and this can only be given by the Gu family. Hearing this, Aju finally opened her mouth. Her tone was very calm. I'm also very rich. Ha ha ha. Guro laughed when she heard this, and there was another meaning in her words. Aju, you're really naive and cute. In the future, you'll know what I mean by power. At your age and status now, you really won't understand. Aju didn't care what Guro thought. Baijun liked dogs. She knew it better than anyone else. Going to school was to hold Alaska's hand. Gu Qing kept his promise. He didn't wear a school uniform. He wore a black leather jacket on his upper body and held the Alaskan Malamute with one hand. He always felt that it was difficult to control it. On the other hand, the big dog became much more obedient after seeing Aju. It really did not know who was the master. Little Bean, where's my breakfast? Aju saw that Gu Qing was holding a big dog that he couldn't control and felt that it was difficult for him. She immediately took out the big steamed buns that she had bought from her school bag. Here. Gu Qing looked at the 10 steamed buns in front of him and was immediately dumbfounded. You want me to eat this? I always eat steamed buns for breakfast. After saying that, Aju added, the steamed buns in this shop are very delicious. There are vegetables inside. Gu Qing didn't believe it. Did you also buy steamed buns for Enchanting? Yes. Aju nodded. Gu Qing said, you bought 10. Okay. Aju looked at the big dog and waved at it. Gu Qing gripped the dog leash in his hand tightly. Enchanting has finished eating. What's his stomach made of? 10 steamed buns, who was going to be stuffed to death. Aju said with a small face, I've sent you breakfast. Are you going to give me the big dog or not? 10 steamed buns for an Alaskan dog. I can't believe I would do such a losing deal. Gu Qing really felt that he was crazy. There must be something wrong with my brain, but for your own good, you'd better not send this dog to your brother's birthday party. It will be very troublesome if it bites someone. You can send it in advance or after the party. It's up to you. I'm going to your house first. Everyone will be very busy today. Take care of yourself. Aju nodded. She didn't tell him that she didn't plan to go to the birthday party at all. She was going to follow her second brother today. Gu Qing saw that she only nodded and felt extremely helpless. If his grandfather saw this, he would definitely laugh at him. Ever since he was born, he had never been so kind to anyone. Little Bean, don't you have anything to say? Gu Qing raised his eyebrows. He looked very handsome. Aju brought the Alaskan dog over, touched the big dog's head, and said to Gu Qing, I'll give you the money tomorrow. Do I lack money? After Gu Qing finished speaking, in order to avoid being angered by her, he had to change the topic. Watch the dog. I'm leaving. Aju nodded. Gu Qing was about to leave when he saw a bicycle in front of him. There was a person sitting on the bicycle. He supported the bicycle with one leg and had a faint smile on his face. This was Enchanting. Gu Qing hesitantly stopped his footsteps. Aju was happy. She ran over in an instant, and the Alaskan dog followed behind her. When the Alaskan dog saw Enchanting, it immediately showed its fangs. It was obvious that it wanted to pounce on Enchanting. However, in the next moment, a strange thing happened. The originally fierce large dog suddenly stopped in front of the bicycle, and its back was still trembling. As if it was afraid. Gu Qing felt that he must have seen wrongly. No one knew better than him how powerful this Alaskan dog was usually. Would it be afraid? Then he looked at Enchanting, who was holding the bicycle. The faint smile on the corner of his mouth didn't change at all. His eyes fell on the Alaskan dog indifferently. This dog is not bad. Oh whoa. The Alaskan dog retracted its claws with trepidation. Aju held the big paw and said in a serious manner, It's greeting you. Gu Qing. Is there such a way to greet someone? Want to tear the other party apart? He thought that only Aju would think so in the whole world. Unexpectedly, the person who was attacked actually smiled and reached out his hand to hold the Alaskan dog's paw. Hi, hello. Gu Qing swore that he really saw his beloved dog trembling, even though that beloved dog had already been sent out by him. But wasn't this too unusual? This is. Enchanting seemed to have just noticed him. Aju introduced, Gu Qing, my desk mate. Also surnamed Gu. Enchanting continued to smile. That's a really good surname. Gu Qing looked into his eyes and found that there was no warmth in those eyes. He thought of that day in the cafeteria. It was this person who had a conflict with his cousin and the others. Gu Qing wasn't present at that time. Later, he heard the whole story. This person used such a method to get close to Aju. It was really unpleasant to see this. He walked towards Enchanting with one hand in his pocket. When he brushed past her, he said in a low voice, That's why I said don't provoke the one surnamed Gu. You can't afford to. Chapter 12:19. Hearing this, Enchanting raised her eyebrows, and the smile on her lips became even wider. Gu Qing did not see Enchanting's expression. After saying this, he stepped onto the Land Rover that was parked at the side. Even his back looked very cool. Let's go. Gu Qing gave the order to the driver, but from the corner of his eyes, he looked at Aju who was standing not far away. He originally wanted to stand up for his cousin. But seeing the little bean like this, he knew that he couldn't do anything. No wonder Baijuan didn't find trouble with Enchanting. Because the little bean's performance was too obvious. It was as if she was saying that she was protecting that person, and no one could touch him. Gu Qing clenched his hands, feeling more and more irritated. This little bean, why did she have such bad taste? The old driver seemed to have sensed his young master's displeasure, so he didn't say anything along the way. The Bai family's decorations were almost done. The hall was big enough, and there was a row of dining tables. The only thing missing was the flowers on them. A grill was set up in the courtyard. This was probably a Muslim chef who wanted to roast a whole lamb in the courtyard. There was also a pile of wood at the side, as well as all kinds of tableware. Each set was wrapped in special things, and it was very stylish. When Gu Qing came in, he saw Gu Rou instructing the servants to make slight adjustments. He couldn't help but laugh. "Sister, you haven't married yet, but you're already so active. What are you talking about?" Gu Rou reached out to cover his mouth and looked around nervously. Gu Qing looked at her and frowned. "What's with your reaction? What are you feeling guilty about?" "You're the one who's feeling guilty." Gu Rou heaved a sigh of relief when she saw that no one was around. She reached out and took his car keys. "I'm going to pick someone up from school now. I don't want to talk to you anymore. You should change your clothes too. You can't attend the birthday party like this in the afternoon." Gu Qing smiled. "I'm not the main character anyway. By the way, where's Bai Juan? Why don't I see him?" "To be honest, sister, the two of you should be on good terms now, right?" When Gu Rou heard this, her fingers clenched tightly. Last night, no matter how she knocked on the door, Bai Juan did not let her in. He was just short of coldly telling her to get lost. Even when the doctor came, she wanted to send him ginger water. He even asked Auntie Wang to throw away the ginger water that she had boiled. He clearly didn't give her any face. Even when he was sick, he did not forget to ask if a Jew had come back. Today, when he heard that there was a purple jade boot ahead, he left with Deputy Zhang. He didn't even look at her, who was helping to decorate. She was so helpful in the Bai family. Did he really not feel anything good about her at all? Gu Rou recalled that when the two of them first met, it was Bai Juan who was discussing business with her grandfather. Grandpa had also said that their schools were close to each other, so they should spend more time together. However, Bai Juan refused at that time. He said, "I usually have to take care of my sister, so I don't have time. I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you, Grandpa Gu." Grandpa smiled without saying anything, but he encouraged her to be more proactive. At that time, she was still angry, thinking that this Bai Juan was really proud and arrogant. But for some reason, the more he looked at it, the better he felt. This was probably the feeling one would have after falling in love with someone. Even if that person didn't like her, she had to work hard to get it. "Sister. Sister, I'm asking you a question." Gu Qing dragged out his tone. Gu Rou didn't answer directly. "Why are there so many things? When did you become so gossipy?" "Alright, I won't talk to you anymore. I have to hurry to the school to pick them up and then go get the gifts together." Yes, he had to follow her steps. Bai Juan could reject her once, twice, he couldn't reject her a third time. Moreover, at the birthday party, there was one thing that he had always wanted, and he would definitely not reject it. Gu Rou smiled when she thought of this. She called Old Master Gu sweetly and confirmed again, "Grandpa, do you really want me to hand that thing to Bai Juan?" "Don't worry, that child Bai Juan will like this gift. Even if you don't give it to him, I have to give it to him." Old Master Gu held a fountain pen and laughed softly. "I've already asked my secretary to prepare the things and sign the papers. When Bai Juan finishes cutting the cake, you can hand it to him. There will always be people who like to see a golden couple." "Grandpa." Gu Rou pulled open the car door and called out unwillingly. Old Master Gu chuckled. Okay. I won't talk about it anymore." "Why are you still shy?" Gu Rou said a few more words to Old Master Gu before hanging up. She sat in the car and looked down at her phone. At the birthday party, she would give this gift away. A Jew should understand the difference between her and her. In the end, she was just a child from the mountains. If she had been the little princess of the Bai family, she wouldn't have hated her so much. But she just had to be such a hindrance. Gu tightened her left hand and laughed again. How could an orphan girl be worthy of the Bai family? The scenery outside the car window quickly passed by. On the mountain road leading to the suburbs, Bai Juan sat at the back of the car. The back of his hand still had the needle marks from yesterday's intravenous drip. His throat was so painful that even his nasal voice was heavy when he spoke. Take a shortcut. Young master. Vice Commander Zhang sat in the passenger seat and said worriedly, You're not in good health. There's still a banquet in the afternoon. Why don't I order the things first? We'll come back another day to get them. Bai Juan coughed heavily twice. His side profile remained handsome and indifferent. I'll get them today. There's news from old Sue. There's someone else who wants this purple jade Buddha head. Vice Commander Zhang opened his mouth. In the end, he couldn't help but ask, Young master has bought quite a number of jade Buddhas from Mississippi. Actually, it doesn't matter if there's one or two missing, right? She's not in a good mood recently. Bai Juan turned his gaze over. The purple jade Buddha head is different from the others. There's a relic of an eminent monk in it. It's said that it fell from Mountain Tenya. It can help people block the disturbances of the mortal world and protect people from being invaded by all things. It's very suitable for a Jew to wear. After Vice Commander Zhang heard this, he didn't continue to persuade him. Because only he knew that the young master didn't just take a fancy to this purple jade Buddha head these few days. A long time ago, the young master had looked for many people to buy this purple jade Buddha head. In the end, it was old Master Gu who pulled the strings and found the whereabouts of this Buddha head. It was indeed impossible to persuade the young master to give up now. If it wasn't for the news of the Buddha head in old Master Gu's hands that day, the young master probably wouldn't have agreed to go shopping with anyone. He could see that the young master was not happy at that time. But even at that time, the young master didn't look as lonely as he did now. Lord Bai didn't know that a Jew was bullied. When these things happened, he wasn't there. If he knew, Gu Rou would have been over long ago, and Qingchen wouldn't have appeared. There wouldn't have been any story at all, so don't distort the plot and character settings. Mwah. Chapter 1220. The place where the purple jade Buddha head was placed was in an ancient town near the capital. This ancient town was not very famous in the past. It was not until a variety show came to film that it became very popular. Many people would bring their children here because of its fame. Therefore, a short drive of more than an hour was stretched out wirelessly because of the congestion on the road. Bai Juan and the others were driving a Hummer. The advantage of such a car was that it would not hold up the bottom. The disadvantage was that it was too big, unlike some old cars that could be rubbed over. Fortunately, the driver was an experienced driver. Under normal circumstances, he was very experienced. If he was in a hurry, he could take a shortcut. However, taking a shortcut meant that he had to take a dirt road. After considering the safety issue, the driver decided to wait for the train to open. Bai Juan was indeed no longer as sharp as before. It was probably because he was sick that he was not so sharp anymore. However, his temperament still did not change. He still wore a black mask on his face. He got out of the car and looked at the car in front of him. Then, he raised his hand to look at his watch. Call home and tell grandfather not to worry. I will be there on time. Vice Commander Zhang saw his actions and knew that he was going to walk over. He quickly followed behind. Fortunately, the road was not far. It was less than a kilometer to the entrance of the village. After entering the village, there was an ancient bluestone path. Bai Juan stood there, attracting many people's gazes. He pulled out the address stored in his phone and walked in front of a villager. He coughed lightly and asked, Granny, do you know how to get to this place? The old woman spoke in the local language. She puffed up her cheeks and replied. Baizhuan was a native of the capital. He could not understand the dialect in Hebei province at all. He could only guess with his own understanding. In the end, the old woman shook her head. Only then did he know that this granny did not know how to read at all. Because the place was not easy to find, Baizhuan could only ask people in the village one by one. A buzzing voice came from the mask, making people anxious for him. It was not easy for an uncle to come. After looking at the address on the phone, he said that he wanted to bring Baizhuan there. It turned out that the person who owned the purple jade Buddha head was an eminent monk who traveled the world. He had only recently settled down here. When Baizhuan heard this, he immediately followed. It was a very ordinary courtyard house. The flowers and plants planted in the courtyard house were all covered in snow. Only Uncle Dong Qing was still a little green. As soon as Baizhuan walked in, he heard a voice coming from the courtyard, Amitabha. It's not that I don't want to give this purple jade Buddha head to you, but the evil aura on your body is too strong. Even if you get the Buddha head, you will destroy it. Demonic Qi. A trace of doubt appeared on Baizhuan's masked face. When he was on the mountain, he had only heard from his master that there was evil aura in people, but he had never heard of any evil aura. Being too vicious didn't mean that he had killed a lot of people. Instead, it was related to the people and things around him. Those who had no bottom line were the ones who were most prone to anger. However, he had never believed in these things from the beginning to the end. Until he adopted a Jew. There were some things that only when you met someone important would you rather believe in them than not believe in them. Thinking of this, Baizhuan's dark eyes flashed. Then, he heard the voice in the room say, "The little benefactor outside should also be here for my Buddha purple jade. Why don't you come in first?" Baizhuan did not hesitate. He stepped over the steps and saw the scene in the room. In front of a wooden square table sat an eminent monk. He was wearing a monk's robe and was not very outstanding. However, the man sitting opposite him was too handsome. His skin was so fair that it seemed to be shining. He was wearing a straight black suit with a bouquet of dark red roses in the pocket of his suit. His slender hands were wrapped in pure white gloves. It was very easy to think of a movie that had once swept the world, Night Interview with the Vampire. Amitabha. The eminent monk recited a scripture to the man. "Benefactor, Buddha always talks about fate. Some things can't be forced." The man lowered his eyes and curled his lips. He was still spinning a cup of tea between his fingers. "Talking about fate with me." When the eminent monk heard this, his expression seemed to turn ugly for a moment. However, he was more afraid as if he had recognized the man's identity. You. Baizhuan reached out and pressed the back of the eminent monk. He still wore a black mask on his face. His pitch-black eyes looked at the man, neither servile nor overbearing. The eminent monk chanted Amitabha again. "Little benefactor, this old monk can't agree to what you want today. Little benefactor has nothing to do with this place. Little benefactor, you'd better leave quickly." "I won't leave until I get the Buddha's head." Baizhuan stood at the side. He was wearing a pure white down jacket. His figure was slender, and his aura did not weaken in the slightest. However, the eminent monk really wanted to push him out. He looked at the man opposite him warily, as if the person standing in front of him was not a human, but some kind of ferocious beast. The man only supported his chin with one hand and looked at the eminent monk with an indifferent expression. "It seems that you have already recognized me. In that case, don't waste any more time. Otherwise, I can't guarantee that no one will bleed in this room." The eminent monk knew that he was using Baizhuan's life to threaten him. "However, it's not that I'm unwilling to hand over the Buddha's head, but when the Buddha's head is in your Highness' hands, it will be destroyed in an instant." The eminent monk put his palms together. At that time, this Buddha's head will be meaningless. He could sense that the Buddha's head was in this room, but at the same time, he could also sense that the Buddha's aura was suppressed by him a little. It seemed that this old baldy was not lying. The purple jade Buddha's head would indeed be destroyed in his hands. His Highness, who had originally wanted to bring his daughter home earlier, darkened his eyes and stood up. His eyes swept over by Juan, who was standing at the side. The eminent monk thought that he was going to make a move, so he hurriedly moved to the side. However, His Highness did not start a massacre as he thought. Instead, he walked out of the room as if there was no one else around. He said coldly, "Go." Many bat-like birds flew up from the beams in the room. Black feathers fluttered down. Bai Juan stretched out his hand to block his eyes. When he turned around, he saw that the eminent monk seemed to have heaved a sigh of relief as he sat back on the wooden chair. Bai Juan frowned. Today's matter was inevitably too strange. First of all, the road had been blocked for so long. It was snowing outside, but there was not a single trace of snowflakes on that man's body. How did he come over with such a blocked road? Moreover, what was going on with those bats? Bai Juan had always been an idealist. Other than himself, he did not believe in any gods or ghosts. If it were not for a Jew, he would not even believe in Buddha's fate. However, these phenomena that could not be explained clearly with what he had learned made Bai Juan doubt the identity of the man. Who was he? Chapter 12:21. Amitabha. When the monk saw that the man had left, he stood up and pushed the teacup beside him. When the teacup spun, a Buddha head the size of a pearl rose from the wooden table. Ever since my Buddha purple jade entered the world, there have always been disturbances in this world. In order to avoid this calamity, this penniless monk preached all over the world. Now that this penniless monk is old and will pass away soon, it should be handed over to someone with Buddha's fate. But now, it seems that I won't be able to hold on until then. Since I've been targeted by him, it should be very difficult for me to escape. Young benefactor's righteousness is also suitable for this Buddha head. As he spoke, the monk handed the purple jade to Bai Juan. Then, he pressed his palms together and chanted, Amitabha. After that, he didn't say anything else. Instead, he sat there and meditated. The value of the purple jade Buddha head was very high. Vice Commander Zhang had originally prepared a large sum of money. What he didn't expect was that as soon as he came in with a small leather case, the young master had already gotten what he wanted. Bai Juan glanced at him and said indifferently, "Let's go. Don't disturb the monk's rest." Vice Commander Zhang lifted the leather case. "What about the money?" "There's no need." Bai Juan was the first to walk out of the courtyard. His nasal voice was still very heavy, and even his head was a little heavy. Every joint was aching because of the heavy cold. After getting into the car, the road ahead was still blocked. Bai Juan wore the Buddha head on his wrist. He glanced at Masterly, who was sitting in front of him, and seemed to have thought of something. He asked, "I haven't passed the car since I entered." "Yes," Masterly said as he turned the steering wheel. "Young master, don't be anxious. This road is indeed not easy to walk on today. I reckon that it will take us some time to get out of this road." Bai Juan lowered his eyes and did not say anything. He only reached out and pressed the space between his eyebrows. How did that man come here? And how did he disappear? "Young master, what's wrong? Are you feeling unwell?" Vice Commander Zhang asked from the side. Bai Juan put on his mask and looked out of the window. "No, let's go back as soon as possible." "Yes." Vice Commander Zhang closed the car door. They didn't know that on the mountain peak above their heads, a man in a black suit was playing with a single rose in his hand. He was looking down at the congested traffic from high above, and the corners of his mouth curved into an evil smile. That man was none other than the one Bai Juan had seen in the monk's room. He was also one of the 3 halls of the Devil Palace, Baligaju. Behind him, there seemed to be countless clouds churning. No one could see what was hidden in those clouds. Beside him, an ancient divine beast, the fire Qilin, which looked like a lion but was 3 times the size of a lion's head, was wagging its tail and opening its mouth. Master, are we just going to give the purple jade Buddha head to this human? That was not just something that fell from Mountain Tenya. When the true Buddha reappeared in the world, he shone the Buddha's light on this purple jade, which formed the Buddha's head. Ever since she sent the little master away, the Princess Consort had been looking for this Buddha head. Master wanted to snatch the Buddha's head from Princess Consort and give her a surprise. After all, if he had it, the little master would not have to wait until the year of reincarnation to return home. As long as he wore this Buddha head, he should be able to live safely with his master and the little master. Although the little master would be filming outside for a long time to earn money to support the family. But in the past few days, he didn't know what was going on. The little master seemed to have a grudge against someone. He tortured some restless demons in the demon world several times. They wanted to get close to the little master, but they were afraid that the demonic aura on their bodies was too strong. In the end, they sat on the stone steps and pressed their phones to vent their anger. No one knew who they were sending WeChat messages to. His manager had suffered a lot. Recently, he couldn't wait to knock on the master's office door every day. Now, he finally found this Buddha head. How could the master give up just like that? This was not like his usual unreasonable style at all. His surname is Bai. Baligaju retracted his gaze. As if he had seen through the fire Qilin's thoughts, he looked over. The fire Qilin seemed to tremble. Then, it began to try its best to reduce its presence. Baligaju continued, Sakya and I have always been sick of each other. His remaining Buddha light will only be damaged in my hands. Since this child's surname is Bai, the Buddha head will always be in Aju's hands. When he sends the purple jade out, we will go to the courtyard. Baligaju crushed the petals in his hand. The floating clouds also churned. Bring Aju home. The last 5 words echoed in the valley in a low voice. No one could hear what he said. Large patches of black feathers flew up, wrapping the man and the divine beast in the middle. In the blink of an eye, there was nothing left. 12:00. It was also noon. The road where Bai Juan was had just been cleared. However, in the schools in the city, it was the most active time for the students. Aju originally wanted to go to class, but she brought a large dog with her. In fact, not to mention the classroom, even the malls were not allowed to enter. Instead, she could take it for a walk outside the school. However, she did not know if it was Aju's imagination. She always felt that the big dog she saw today was much more obedient than that day when she saw it in the snow. Especially when her second brother looked over, little Allah's neck would shrink a little. It was really very obedient. Aju reached out her hand and touched Alaska's big head. Her white cat was still on top of her head. Hellion Chinchin was afraid that her sister would be tired, so she said with a faint smile, "Give me the rope." Okay. Aju thought for a moment and added, "But second brother, you have to watch little Allah. It has a bad temper and likes to bite people." Hellion Chinchin smiled slightly. Bad temper. Oh whoa. Little Alaska immediately retracted its claws and walked beside Hellion Chinchin like a cat. It looked like it wanted to be obedient and go to heaven. Seeing this, Aju felt that her second brother was simply powerful to a certain extent. She and her big brother both relied on their martial strength to win. For example, the first time she saw little Allah, she directly put on an aura of wanting to tame a beast and pounced on little Ala. Gu Qing should not be able to see it, but she did rely on her martial strength to crush little Ala. Unlike her second brother, it seemed that he did not need to do anything and had his own beast-taming ability. Second brother didn't ask you yesterday. Hellion Qingchen stopped and looked at Aju with a smile. Why don't you want to go back to the Bai family today? Just as Aju was about to speak, a familiar smile came from behind her. Aju. Behind her were her two sisters. They seemed to have dressed up meticulously. Their faces were covered in makeup and they looked very youthful. Chapter 12:22. It was Guro. Behind her were her two sisters. They seemed to have dressed up meticulously. Their faces were covered in makeup and they looked very youthful. Guro ran over. Why are you still here? Didn't you go back? It's already past 12 o'clock. The birthday party will start at 4 o'clock. Do you want us sisters to bring you back? Birthday party. What birthday party? Someone beside her heard Guro's words and asked softly. Don't you know? Today is the birthday of Bai Bei. He has already applied for the afternoon leave. I heard that he is going to hold a birthday party in the courtyard. Bai Bei's birthday party. Ah, I want to go too. Save it. Do you think you are also a friend of Belgu? Bai Bei only invites Belgu's friends. Passers-by like us can only stand aside. Whispers could be heard coming from all directions. Aju listened quietly and did not say anything. Guro was still the same. She smiled very sweetly with her hands behind her back. She tilted her head and looked at Aju as if she was waiting for her answer. The two girls behind her looked at the people around them and smiled at each other. It was indeed an honor to be invited by the Bai family. If it wasn't for Guro, they definitely wouldn't have been able to enter the courtyard. Although it wasn't Bai Bei who personally invited them, what was the difference between Guro and Bai Bei? Therefore, there was still a beautiful friend by their side who could go where they wanted to go. That's right, Aju, you can go back with us. One of the girls opened her mouth and muttered, so that school bell Bai won't have to come and pick you up later. Aju looked up and glanced at that person. The girl smiled and blinked. Aju, I don't mean anything else. I also heard from Aro that the school bell cancelled some of the celebration projects for you. There are no games like Truth or Dare. It's just eating. When the time comes, we will all play together. Don't always be so distant from us. Ha! Hellion Qingchen looked up with a faint smile, her tone was very slow. Aju and you don't even know each other, what's there to be distant from each other? The girl choked for a moment, then sneered, Hey, isn't this the handsome guy who rides a bicycle to school every day? We were friends with Aju's brother to begin with, so how could we not be estranged? Her brother. Hellion Qingchen's eyes turned cold. Are you sure you know who her brother is? Of course, even if you're talking about Bai Juan, in my memory, Bai Juan doesn't even know your name. Didn't he not say a word the last time we met? The girl was speechless again. Indeed, Colonel Bai did not even know her. At most, they had met twice. That was also because he followed Guro. Right, Guro. Hee, our Guro is the girlfriend of Colonel Bai. Even if Bai Juan can't call out my name, everyone knows me. As she spoke, the girl raised her chin. Hellion Qingchen raised her eyebrows. In the end, someone else is Bai Juan's girlfriend. I really don't understand. What does this have to do with you? Is it worth showing off like this? After hearing Hellion Qingchen's mockery, the onlookers also covered their mouths and laughed. The girl's face was flushed red. Guro immediately helped her out. This is my best friend. We often eat with Baijuan and the others. We have been friends for a long time. We will often be together in the future. It's only a matter of time before we get familiar with each other. As she spoke, she looked at the big dog that Aju was holding. Aju, this Alaska is very fierce. You have to be careful. I ran over to greet you because I wanted to get along well with you. Just like I said this morning, today is your brother's birthday. Let's not make things unpleasant. You also shouldn't interact with people he doesn't like and make his heart feel uncomfortable. Since you don't want to go back with us, I'll get the driver to pick you up later. Your brother is busy today, so I'm afraid he won't be able to find the time. If there's anything, just call me. As soon as she finished speaking, Guro looked at the two people behind her. Let's go first. It's not suitable for a Jew to enter with a dog. Okay. The two girls nodded in unison. One of them turned around and looked at Hellion Chinchin unwillingly. The mockery in her eyes was obvious, as if saying that a poor boy dared to embarrass her. If it wasn't for Aju's protection, if it wasn't for the fact that Aju was the sister of Colonel Bai, they would have dealt with him long ago. Hellion Chinchin was the best at reading people. Of course, she knew what these girls were thinking. Her eyes curled up, and her lips curled into a smile. If Guro took a closer look, she would realize that the Alaska that she thought was very fierce was shrinking like a spotted wolf dog. It didn't even dare to stretch out its claws. How could a person who could make a fierce dog so afraid be a poor boy? Is it because of this reason that you don't want to go back to the Bai family? Hellion Chinchin looked at the backs of the few people and turned her face. She smiled faintly and pressed her hand on Aju's head, rubbing it lovingly. Aju shook her head. No, they're not important. Oh. Hellion Chinchin smiled. Then why? Even second brother can't guess it. Aju's delicate little face was very cute. I don't want to always be treated like a child. The Bai family has to pay attention to a lot of details when holding a banquet. The people who come are all powerful and influential. If they bring Aju to the banquet, they will definitely be afraid. At that time, it will also be difficult for little brother. Moreover, that's little brother's girlfriend. Everyone wants to be with the person they like on their birthday. I'm like that. So, I don't want to disturb little brother, and I don't want to make things difficult for the Bai family. Just because I only eat vegetarian food, it will make things difficult for the people around me. If I appear at the birthday party and those girls say bad things, what if I can't help but beat them up? The main thing is that I definitely can't help it. Second brother, can you understand? It's very difficult for me not to beat people up. Hellion Chinchin listened to her sister's serious and cute expression, and the smile on her face spread from the corners of her eyes to the corners of her mouth. I can understand. Second brother can understand your feelings very well. Right? Aju seemed to have found a confidant and held her second brother's hand enthusiastically. Hellion Chinchin smiled and said, then let's go back to my place first. When it's about time, I'll send you back to the Bai family. Aju hesitated for a moment before nodding. Okay. Let's go. Hellion Chinchin glanced at the Alaskan sled dog. Follow me to get the car first. Okay. Aju said with the white cat on her head, I want to sit in the back seat with Xiao Bai. Of course, Hellion Chinchin would let her sister do whatever she wanted. However, there was one thing. Other than making Baijuan anxious, it was also time to let some people know that their Aju was not to be trifled with. Chapter 12:23. Time passed by bit by bit. Baijuan sat in the car. Due to his illness, his hat was on his head, and his mask was covered tightly. How long until we reach the city? The driver looked at the traffic flow in front of him. We should be there in about 2 hours. Don't worry, young master. We can make it in time for the start of the banquet. Bai Juan didn't care if he could make it in time for the start of the banquet. Compared to this, what he wanted to do more was to push the birthday cake in front of him with a Jew. Thinking of that scene, Bai Juan finally had a smile on his face. He took out the purple jade Buddha head and held it in his palm. Let's go to the school first and pick up a Jew before returning to the courtyard. Young master, in that case. Vice Commander Zhang turned his head. We might not make it in time for the start of the banquet. If the birthday boy was not present, it would be very awkward. Moreover, this birthday was different from any other. It was the young master's coming-of-age banquet. Bai Juan looked out of the window and did not say anything. Obviously, he knew that something would be wrong, but these things did not seem to be important to him. Vice Commander Zhang had always known that the young master valued the young miss very much. He definitely wanted to be there with the young miss. Moreover, the young master had also told the chief that he would only show his face at the banquet for 2 hours. After that, he would take the young miss to celebrate the birthday alone. No wonder the young master kept asking about the time today. If it weren't for the young miss, he would probably only look at the trend of some technology stocks calmly in the traffic jam. Sometimes, Vice Commander Zhang really felt that the young master didn't look like a 17 or 18-year-old youth at all. He thought far more than his peers. The young master had been planning like this since he was young. Perhaps the appearance of the young miss was the only thing he didn't plan for. Vice Commander Zhang still remembered that before the young miss came to the Bai family, the young master didn't welcome the sudden addition of another person in the family. However, when the young miss walked in wearing a kasaya, the young master personally held her hand and walked in. One had to know that the young master had never been like this to other children. At that time, they all thought that the young miss was a boy and a little monk. Who would have thought that it would be a girl? From that day on, the young master doted on the child more and more. If he had to say, all the patience of the young master in his life should be spent on the young miss. In the past, even if the young master went to the temple to cultivate, he never believed in things like gods and Buddhas until the young miss came to the Bai family. The young master bought almost all the jade Buddha statues that he could buy. For the young master who didn't need a single cent of the family's money, it was actually not as easy as it seemed on the surface. But because of this, the young master had started to come into contact with the business circle before joining the army. In the beginning, there was a period of time when he drank a lot of alcohol. If it was the young master of the past, he would not have been able to imagine it. With the Bai family's influence, there was no need for the young master to work so hard anymore. But the young master felt that it was not enough. Perhaps this was the Bai family. Their roots were upright, and the blood that flowed in their veins was always the blood of soldiers. In their eyes, home and country were inseparable. Perhaps it was because they had passed through a small road, but after entering the national highway, the car began to accelerate significantly. Bai Juan's car had a good performance to begin with, and its speed was much faster than ordinary cars. 2 hours later, they arrived at the entrance of No. 1 high school on time. 3:45. Bai Juan glanced at the time on his phone, pushed open the car door, and walked toward the office building. He wanted to apply for leave for the last class in the afternoon before going to a Jew's classroom. A Jew? The form teacher of the 3rd grade raised his eyes to look at Bai Juan. She didn't come to class in the afternoon and left at noon. Isn't today your birthday? She should have gone home early. A few days ago, she came to my place to apply for leave and said that she wanted to buy you a birthday present. The teacher's words made the smile in Bai Juan's eyes even more obvious. Vice Commander Zhang saw that his young master seemed to have changed after going to the teaching building and coming back. He could not help but be a little surprised. What was going on? Going home. Baizhuan put on his mask and the corners of his mouth curled up. Vice Commander Zhang exclaimed, "Aren't you going to pick up Miss? She should be at home." Hearing Baizhuan's words, the driver did not hesitate anymore. He stepped on the accelerator to the end and drove into the busy traffic. The cars that entered and exited the military compound were basically of the same grade. For the Bai family's only grandson's coming-of-age ceremony, other than some people in the military compound, there would also be some huge businessmen inside. When the Hummer drove into the compound, it was already past 4 in the afternoon. The banquet was about to begin. There were many guards and bodyguards outside the compound. Everyone needed to have a guest invitation to enter. Those who did not have an invitation were all rejected at the door. The examination was very strict. The two girls beside Gu Rou were still saying, "Fortunately, we have Gu Rou by our side. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to enter at all." That's right, that's right. Gu Rou, when you just entered the compound, someone asked you to show your invitation. Why don't you even need an invitation when you're at the Bai family's place? Gu Rou laughed and whispered into their ear, "Look at these two doors. There are Gu family's bodyguards. I just need to show my face." As expected, the pavilion closest to the water enjoys moonlight first. The girl teased Gu Rou. Gu Rou then told the truth, "Grandpa Bai and my grandfather were comrades in arms a long time ago. The two of them had a very deep relationship. However, later on, my grandfather went overseas to join the business world. Grandpa Bai was originally from a military family and had always been in the compound. It's not strange that there are people from the Gu family on Baizhuan's birthday this time." However, when she heard that Baizhuan had gone out early in the morning, she made some changes to the plan. Wasn't Zhu so embarrassed that she didn't want to come back with her? Similarly, she didn't want to see this person at the birthday banquet either. Then, when it was about time, she would get someone to let her in. Gu Rou smiled lightly and flicked her long hair. She still looked very pure and bright. "Let's go in first. The banquet will start in less than 10 minutes. "Ah, I'm really excited. What should I do?" "Why are you so excited? It's not your birthday." "But speaking of which, the banquet is about to start. Why isn't Colonel Bai here yet?" At this moment, in the grand and luxurious Bai family mansion, exquisite dishes were already placed on the long table, as well as bottles of fine red wine. Even the outside of the courtyard had begun to light up piles of fruit trees, whole sheep were on the rack, and knives and forks were in unlimited supply. Outside the courtyard were soldiers in military uniforms, and inside were professional chefs and waiters hired from outside. All of them were busy. It was even more textured than the banquet in the hotel. It made people look forward to it. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.